Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the most overpriced junk LEGO has ever given us, that being 75401 Ahsoka's Jedi Interceptor. This set just released on January 1st with 290 pieces and a retail price of $45 US, which is just ridiculous. Now, I wasn't being entirely serious by calling it junk, because the model itself is actually kind of decent, which you'll see later on in the video, but the price is just horrendous. For context, the last Jedi Interceptor LEGO made was in 2020, and that had a retail price of $30 US, which adjusted for inflation is about $37 in 2025, so theoretically this set should be about $35 to $40, but no, it's $45, which is just such an awful reach on LEGO's part. It's absolutely unacceptable. And even worse, Jedi Bob's Interceptor that just released about 4 months ago in August has a retail price of $40. So in the span of 4 months, LEGO has bumped their Starfighter price up from $40 to $45. So with that being said, before we even take a look at the actual build, I'm taking off 2.5 points. It's automatically starting at a 7.5 out of 10. But price aside, I think the box art looks decent, especially on the back where there's this pretty cool action scene that looks like Dathomir. I'm not really sure, but it looks cool. Opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find 3 numbered bags, as well as your instruction manual and a sticker sheet with 11 stickers on it. But now moving on to the minifigures, first up here we have R7A7. This is the second time that LEGO has ever made this figure, and it's clearly an upgrade from the original one we got back in 2009. It's fairly simple, but it gets the job done, and I like this droid's colorway. For some reason, the dark red with the green just looks interesting to me, although it would have been kind of nice if it had some sort of back printing. I mean, this set is $45 after all. Next up here we have Anakin Skywalker, based off his look in Clone Wars Season 5, and LEGO actually did a great job with this figure. I love the black and brown robes on him on the front and the back, and they also did a surprisingly good job with his face print, as you can see here, especially on his second face, which is a bit more angry and aggressive looking. And then lastly here we have Ahsoka, and just like Anakin, this is a great looking figure. The printing detail on the front and the back is about as high quality as you'd expect for a modern day figure, and they actually use those new movable short legs on her. From what I know, this is the first time they've used these legs on an Ahsoka minifigure, and it looks really good. And then along with that, of course, she's going to have a double-sided face along with her double lightsabers. The set might be overpriced, but I have to say, I actually like this minifigure lineup. For $45, it would have been nice to maybe get a 4th one, but the ones we do have are great. Anyways though, now moving on to the actual model itself, I have to say, in person, it definitely looks a lot better than it does in the product images. But it's not perfect though, and the main issue for me with it is the cockpit. Well, first off, I have to say the cockpit is printed, and the print itself does look really good, but as you can see here, they tried to make the cockpit shape more accurate, where it's bigger in the back and then slopes down and is smaller in the front. But to me at least, it just turned out to look kind of weird. It's kind of tacky looking and takes away the smooth look that these Jedi Interceptor cockpits are supposed to have, especially in the front here where there's an extra plate in between the windshield piece and the actual cockpit, making it sort of stick out too far. For comparison, here is the 2014 Anakin Jedi Interceptor that I had to dig through my bin to find. And as you can see, they're both relatively the same size and they actually look really nice together, but the older style cockpit on Anakin's is a lot smoother, and the cockpit piece itself presses up right against the windshield piece on the front, giving it a much smoother look and doesn't leave this lip on it like on Ahsoka's. But shaping aside, perhaps the most annoying thing about this cockpit is that there's actually nothing holding it down in place. The Technic pieces they use to actually open and close the cockpit is a good design, there's just nothing holding it in place in the front, whereas on Anakin's there is this one stud on the front that does hold it down in place. And this isn't really a big deal for the reasons you might think, like when you hold it upside down, it does take some aggressive shaking to actually get it to start coming open. But what I found most annoying about it was just that you always have to pick it up from the back. If you try to pick it up by the cockpit piece, it just opens and kind of falls out of your hand, and I personally just found this kind of annoying. But moving away from the outside of the cockpit, on the inside you're going to find a very simple interior with a tiny stickered control panel where you can obviously grab Ahsoka and sit her in the cockpit seat and then fold the cockpit back down. And then on the very bottom you're actually going to find 2 clips to hold both of her lightsabers, which is really nice. And also another thing I have to say about the bottom of the model is that I appreciate how LEGO kind of went out of their way to just smooth it off down here and make it look kind of nice. It's not just straight anti-studs, there's actually some decent detail down here. The engine thrusters on the back of the model look decent. I couldn't find any pictures online of the back of Ahsoka's Jedi Interceptor, but I guess this is how they look, although I do have to say they are pretty small and look a bit awkward. I definitely like the look of the bigger ones on Anakin's from 2014 a lot better. Now the cockpit area might be a bit rough, but the part of this set that definitely shines are the wings. The dark red and white looks very good to me at least, and LEGO did a great job at making all the patterns on it. There's also quite a bit of sticker detailing, the main ones being on the wing foils. They're red with these big white swooshes on them that I guess are supposed to represent Targrudo horns. Either way though, they look awesome. They definitely give the wings such a sleek look. And then on the inside of the airfoils, you're gonna have those gray sort of carbon looking stickers that are on all the LEGO Jedi Interceptors. And then there's actually 2 more stickers right next to the cockpit on these pieces that I'm pretty sure are actually new. I might be wrong on that, but I've never seen them before in a LEGO Star Wars set, and with these stickers on them, they definitely give it a sleek look. On the front and the middle, you're gonna find the 2 main blasters that are very simple, but they get the job done and they look good. I like them in this gray color. And then on the middle of the wings on the sides, you're gonna have these 2 smaller laser cannons that look really awesome. They're super subtle, but they give it a cool look, and I didn't even know these were on Ahsoka's Jedi Interceptor, but if you look at the actual ship, they're there. But again, the wings on this set do look really good, and they do actually blend with the cockpit pretty well. It's just the shaping of the cockpit is really off. And then as you'd expect, you can take R7A7 and sit him in his little droid slot on the side of the ship right here, which will complete the look of your Interceptor. And then the last and final play feature is that on the bottom here, of course, there are 2 spring-loaded shooters that you can fire as you please or not fire at all. Overall, for the most part, I actually like the build in this set. The colors are great, the red and white is super vibrant and will definitely sort of brighten up your collection. And like I said over and over again, the brick build patterns and the shaping and the details on the wings look great. Really just the only problem with this build is the cockpit. And if I was to give this set a rating out of 10 on just the build and the minifigures, I would give it a solid 8.5. LEGO did a pretty decent job on it. But like I said at the beginning of the video, the price is just absolutely awful, so unfortunately I'm giving this set a 6 out of 10. Now if you were to ask me if I'd recommend this set to you guys, I have to say if you're someone that does not own any of the Jedi Interceptors, I would get this set when it goes on sale, because there's really no telling when LEGO's gonna make another one. They don't make these very often, and they're just really awesome ships to have in your collection. So if you don't own a Jedi Interceptor, get this when it goes on sale. But if you're someone that does own one or multiple of them, I would just pass on it unless you really want it for some reason. Anyways though, let me know what you guys think about this set down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you can see the link screen. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75402 ARC-170 Starfighter. This set just released on January 1st with 497 pieces and a retail price of $70 US, which is actually a pretty fair deal, especially compared to some other sets that just released. And after 15 years, the wait is finally over. We have a new ARC-170. And the first thing I have to say is I'm so happy that it actually includes 3 clone pilots, with one of them actually being Oddball, a character LEGO has never made before. A Jedi in this set would have been cool, but not at the expense of replacing one of these clone troopers. I never liked how Kit Fisto always replaced the 3rd clone trooper in the 2010 model because he just looked weird sitting inside the ship, but now with this model we actually have 3 clone troopers, and I'm very happy with that. The front box art also looks really good, being based off of Caden and Ammonia, although unfortunately at the bottom left it has the 332nd trooper, which is the box art they use on Clone Wars sets, and you usually wouldn't see me complain about this. However, because this is an episode 3 set like others, I do think it would have been a lot cooler if there was a Darth Vader figure right here. Anyways though, on the back of the box you're going to find a cool picture of the set in what appears to be a very dark and gloomy Venator hangar, along with all of its play features and different functionalities. And then actually opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find 4 separately numbered bags, along with your instruction manual, as well as a sticker sheet with a total of 16 separate stickers, which is kind of crazy. But now taking a look at the minifigures, first up here we have R4P44, and this is a very simple astromech droid that has a basic dark green and white colorway. There's really not much to see here, but LEGO did do as good as they needed to on it. And if you're wondering, here's what it looks like to the one that came in the 2010 ARC-170, and they are pretty much exactly the same, which I didn't even realize until I actually compared them for this video. There's just some very subtle differences here and there, but to the untrained eye, they are pretty much exactly the same. But now actually moving on to the figures we care about most, being the clone pilots, and I have to say these guys are pretty much perfect. LEGO did a great job on them. As you can see, the only differences between them are their helmet prints, with Oddball on the left, Captain Jag in the middle, and then just a standard pilot on the right. These guys really do look incredible. I have no complaints about them. Great printing on the helmets, great printing on the torsos, on the front and the back, and they also got new face prints, which looks surprisingly accurate to what we see in episode 3. And if you're wondering, here is Captain Jag and the standard pilot compared to the 2010 Captain Jag and the 2010 standard pilot. Those figures were good for their time period, but as you can see, LEGO has upgraded them significantly, and the ones we have today are noticeably better. Overall, I'm very happy with this minifigure lineup. In my head, it's clearly an upgrade from the 2010 model. Again, a Jedi would have been cool, but I'd rather have the 3rd clone pilot. Although in a perfect world, I guess we would get a Jedi on top of what's already here. Although unfortunately, the figures might actually be the best part of this set, because now actually moving on to the build, I have to say I'm a bit underwhelmed by it. And the first thing I gotta talk about is the wings, because man, they are really short, way shorter than they need to be. Especially the smaller ones on the top and the bottom that actually fold open, they're just super short. They don't really do the look of the ARC-170 much justice, and also the wings themselves don't open wide enough. It gets even worse when you compare it to the 2010 model, which I have right here. As you can see, its wings are proportionally proportionally much longer and they open wider, giving it a much more aggressive and sort of dramatic look, which this newer one just doesn't really seem to have. And no, it's not just because it's a smaller model, it's because the wings don't open wide enough and they're not long enough compared to the size of the cockpit, which just makes it kind of underwhelming in my head at least. However, one thing it definitely does have over the 2010 model is the actual functionality to open the wings. As you can see here, there's just this switch on the bottom at the back that you just slide back and forth and the wings just very easily pop open and close back. It's a very simple design that was actually pretty fun to build, and honestly it's also just kind of a cool function to look at with the Technic pieces on the sides moving, as you can see here. Although one thing that is kind of annoying is that when you slide this lever, the wings don't open all the way, so you kind of have to go in there and manually pull them open a little bit further. And like I said, it's a significant upgrade from the 2010 model because it just had a gear on the back that you had to twist and twist, and it would literally take like 30 seconds to open the wings. And from my experience, it's always just super tedious when I need to close and open the wings on this model. Now, as for the actual detail on the wings themselves, it's pretty decent. I don't really have much to say. On the smaller wings, there's two stickers, one on the end and the other one being the Republic Navy symbol, with the bottom wings being exactly the same. And then there's actually these stickers on the bigger wings that are kind of hidden that you can't see unless you open them up. Now, as for the big cannons on the side go, I don't really like them, and the spring-loaded shooters sticking out the back don't really help much either. I know LEGO really likes to include these, but on this set, they just don't look very good on the outside of the wings like this. And also, they replace what should be the smaller cannon. The 2010 model has both the cannons, the smaller one being on top and the bigger one being on the bottom, but on the newer one, it's just the spring-loaded shooter and one cannon, and it just doesn't look that great. I honestly think LEGO should have tried to incorporate these shooters in the nose or body of the ship somehow, not on the ends of the wings like this. And also, not to mention, the cannons that we do have on the ends of the wings are way too short, especially compared to the 2010 model. They really should go all the way about to the front of the ship, or maybe 2 or 3 studs short, but as you can see here, they only go about halfway, and it just does not look how it's supposed to. The engine intakes on the front, on the other hand, actually do look pretty good. I wish LEGO could have somehow made them a little bit bigger, but what we do have looks good. They're very sleek, and they have those nice angled fins on the inside. And then following the engines from the front all the way to the back, the actual thrusters themselves look good too. They're a very basic design, similar to what we saw on the 2010 model, but it works and it looks good. The front nose area is probably where this build shines the most. They really did get the shaping down pretty much perfectly. It's extremely clean and sleek looking, and there's a few stickers on the side as well as one on the top to add some detail. It also does a good job at just supporting the front area of the ship when you have it sitting flat like this, along with this big brick built sort of block in the middle area that holds the rest of the ship up. Now, the shaping on the front of the ship is probably where it shines the most, but the worst part about this ship has to be the cockpit, specifically the stickers on the windshields. And I mean, holy crap, these look horrendous. As you can see on the box here, they're supposed to be white, and they're advertised to be white, but that is nothing how they look in person. They're just this ugly gray looking color. It kind of looks like wet paper. They're just really rough, to say the least. Actually, no, I'm gonna say the most. They're horrendous. They're ugly. I feel like there's really no way LEGO wouldn't have known this would be a problem with these stickers, so they should have just printed these pieces if it was gonna end up being this bad. But stickers aside, as you'd expect, you can very easily lift all 3 of them up to access some very basic cockpit interiors. The front one having a sticker control panel, the middle one actually having a printed control panel, and the back gunner seat just having an extra seat, no control panel. And I do have to say, I like the tan pieces in the interior. It's super simple, but the tan looks better than maybe black or gray, in my opinion. And then obviously, as you'd expect, you can very easily load up all 3 of your troopers and put Captain Jag in the very front seat, and then grab your astromech droid and put him in the droid area. And like the 2010 one, you have to put the droid in before you close the cockpits back down, because they actually sort of cover his shoulders and hold him in place, which I think is cool because I like the look of just his head popping out and not his entire body. And despite the cockpit windshields themselves looking bad, the shaping around the cockpit is done very well. Just like the front area, it's sleek and clean with some stickers here and there. And then on the very back, you're gonna have your rear cannons or a turret on these ball joints that actually have a pretty good range of motion. You can really point them wherever you want to, and they look really solid, although I wish they were just a tad bit longer. So after 15 years of waiting, does this set live up to the hype and our expectations? And honestly, I have to say, for me at least, no, not really. Like I said at the beginning, I'm just a bit underwhelmed by the model, but at the same time, this is also coming from someone that owns one of the previous versions. I do think if you're someone that doesn't have an ARC-170, you'll really enjoy this set, but for me at least, there's just a few blatant problems here and there. The wings are too short, the cannons on the wings are too short, I don't like how the spring-loaded shooters replace the second cannon that's supposed to be on the wings, and then the worst part by far is those cockpit stickers. Holy, they look so bad. But at least it actually has a pretty decent price, unlike Ahsoka's Jedi Interceptor. So I'm feeling a solid 7.8 out of 10 for this set, and when it comes to if I would recommend this set set to you guys or not. I feel like no matter what I say, most of you are going to go out and buy it anyways because we've been waiting on this for 15 years. So if you don't own one of the previous ARC-170s, go get it. This is a decent model. I think most of you guys will enjoy it. But if you're someone that does own one of the previous ones in good condition, especially the 2010, you'll probably end up being underwhelmed by this set. Anyways though, let me know what you guys think about this set down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing. And if you want to check out more of my videos, you can see on the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75403 Grogu with Hover Pram. This set just released on January 1st and is the biggest and most expensive 2025 LEGO Star Wars set so far, with 1,048 pieces and a retail price of $100 US, which is a bit expensive, although I'll talk about that later. One thing I do want to say though is that I'm honestly impressed that The Mandalorian is still popular enough for LEGO to be making sets like this from it 6 years after it initially released. I don't know, it just shows to me that not all the Disney Star Wars shows are that bad. But anyways, as you can see here, there's not much going on the front of the box, just a nice little render of the set. Same thing on the back where you're gonna have a picture of Grogu out of his pram, as well as a few images of the play features and functionalities. Now opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find 11 separately numbered bags, as well as one instruction manual for Grogu and then one instruction manual for the pram, and a small little sticker sheet containing 6 stickers. And one funny thing I wanted to show while I was building this set is that in the middle of Grogu, there's this tiny little green heart piece that gets covered up. I just thought it was kind of funny how it's a little Easter egg representing Grogu's little green heart, and I wanted to share it with you guys. And speaking of Grogu himself is the only figure that comes in this set, and as you can see here, the actual figure is just the same Grogu we have been getting for the past 5 years now. I'm sure most of you guys own this figure. There's not really much to see here. His pram, on the other hand, is a little bit different. It's a bit smaller and just a bit sleeker and smoothed out, which I honestly think looks pretty good. And then obviously, since this is a buildable character, it's going to come with the printed display plaque. You can pause and read this if you want to. There's not a whole lot to see here, but it is kind of interesting. But now moving on to the actual build, it looks surprisingly really good. Now one thing you might notice is that Grogu himself is actually way too big compared to his pram. As you can see here in the back of the second instruction manual, there is a picture of Grogu and his pram from The Mandalorian, and as you can see, Grogu is significantly smaller than the actual pram itself, but then in this build he is way bigger, and this might bother some of you guys, but honestly it doesn't really bother me at all, just because I think it still looks good. Taking a look at Grogu himself, it is a very small build, but I think LEGO did about everything they needed to on it. His ears can move slightly up and down. I wish they pointed up a bit more, but the range of motion they do have is good, and then his head can also slightly move side to side and turn around, all this allowing for you to make some pretty decent poses with him to put his ears down and give him that cute look and everything. Now I have seen some people online talking about how his face looks pretty uncanny, and I definitely see where people are coming from with that, especially with those printed eyepieces, but I don't think it's as bad as people are saying, because I think for the most part LEGO did a good job on his face. On the back of his head there's really nothing to see, but what you might also notice back here is these 2 gear pieces sticking out of his back, and this is a great play feature because basically you turn those and it just allows for you to easily move his arms up and down. It's a super simple feature that I'm not even sure was needed, but I do have to say it's unique and pretty fun to play with. His hands are very simple. There's just 3 fingers on them, but they do have inverted studs, allowing him to hold some items. Here you have the knob from the Razor Crest, and then over here you get 2 Navarro nummies. That's what it says on the plaque. But by far the best inclusion in my opinion is the little Sorgan frog. It's a very simple build that just has a sticker on the back and a printed eye, and his legs and arms can move around a little bit, and then he just sits flat on the ground. But for some reason, to me at least, it just looks so good when Grogu is holding it in his hand. If you ever find yourself picking up this set, this is such a great way to display him. On the bottom, you can see that his feet are kind of there. There's just some pieces representing that they're under his robe, although I wish they stuck out just to one plate, because I do think it looks kind of weird how he just sits completely flat on a surface. In my eyes, it makes it look a bit incomplete, and I wish there was just a tiny bit of elevation from his feet sticking out. It would make it look a bit more natural. Now taking a look at the pram build, despite it being too small like I showed earlier, I'm actually pretty impressed by it. I think LEGO did a great job on the shaping, although I do have to say it was a pretty repetitive build. Anyways though, on each side here you're going to find some stickers, as well as some yellow pieces to add some details, as well as another sticker right on the front, and then also on the front here you can get just a good look at the shaping they were able to pull off. It looks great in my opinion, and they used some pretty cool techniques to pull off this look. The back of the pram looks good too, although unfortunately there is this pretty noticeable gap that goes right across the middle between where I guess the hood on top meets the actual top of the bowl. It is pretty noticeable, but besides that, this back area looks really good. And speaking of the top portion that I called the hood, I don't really know what else to call it. It's pretty good. The main portion of it, as you can see here, is just 2 large pieces that are connected together at the top with some clips. Although I do have to say, for the price you're paying for this set, I do think LEGO should have included some type of feature where this portion could actually open and close like it does in the show. The stand on the bottom that actually holds up the pram is very simple, just a little black base pretty much. And as you can see here, it very easily comes off, just a little Technic pin that holds it in, as well as some studs. Taking a look at the inside of the pram, frame here, there's not a whole lot to see, but I think LEGO did do a good job. There's lots of great shaping in here, and the brown really does add a nice contrast with the white. And there's also some very minor details towards the back at the top, as you can see here. Now, those two 1x2 pieces in the middle right there is actually where Grogu goes. You just very easily sit him in there right on top of those two pieces, and this is the full look of the build. And in my opinion, this is such a great display piece. I know most of you guys are not interested in this set at all, but for what it is, I think LEGO did a really good job. There's multiple ways to display it. I love the inclusion of the different items, especially the frog. It's just super unique and looks great. Although unfortunately, I do think it's a bit overpriced because the build isn't very big. It's $100 and the build feels like maybe an $80 or $90 build. And again, I think for $100, it would have been nice if there was some functionality with the actual pram itself where it could at least open and close. So because of those things, I'm feeling a solid 8.8 out of 10 for this set. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing. And if you want to check out more of my videos, you can see the link on screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at a set that I honestly thought would never be made, that being 75404 Acclamator-class assault ship. This set just released on January 1st with 450 pieces and a retail price of $50 US, which is very overpriced, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. Right now I want to talk about how I'm just surprised that we actually have an Acclamator now. For years, this ship has been requested by a fairly niche group of people within the LEGO fanbase, and I can't lie, I was definitely one of them, but I just always assumed LEGO kind of ignored this or didn't acknowledge it and that it wouldn't ever be made. But now in 2025, we actually have one in mini-scale form. I always find myself going back to this interview that Solid Brick Studios did with the LEGO Star Wars design team back in like 2023, I believe. And in that interview or panel, whatever you want to call it, one of the designers does explain that they are aware of what the fan base wants and the sets we are requesting. And at the time of that video's release, that was a bit hard to believe. But fast forward to 2025, we have a new ARC-170 and this Acclamator. And despite these sets definitely not being perfect, it does show that there actually is a bit of a weight to the words he said in that interview, and that LEGO is kind of going in the right direction of sets that the fan base actually wants and requests. But enough talk about that stuff, let's actually take a look at this set itself. On the back of the box, you're going to see another render of the build, as well as some dimensions in the bottom right corner, and then a picture of the Acclamator from episode 2 on the bottom left corner. Opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find just 4 numbered bags, as well as your instruction manual, and surprisingly no sticker sheet, which is very nice. And since this is an 18+ set, inside the instruction manual in the first few pages, you're going to find some cool information about the ship in Star Wars, with lots of cool facts that you can pause and read if you want to, and then straight from there you're going to go into your build process. And also while you're building, on one of the pages there is this little paragraph that pops up at the bottom that's just some more information about the ship that you can pause and read if you want to. Now unfortunately there are no minifigures in this set, so jumping straight into the build, I have to say it looks really good. I like this a lot, but man, it is tiny. Here it is compared to the midi-scale invisible hand that released in March of 2024 that also retails for $50 US, and clearly they have different shapes, but as you can tell, the invisible hand is just a bit of a bigger and beefier build. It feels like it's more worth its price. And then also on top of that, it also has 100 more pieces than the Acclamator, yet they're both the same price. And again, they have vastly different shapes, but when you have the builds in person, you can tell that the invisible hand just feels like it's closer to being worth its price point. And this is very disappointing because I really like this build, but it just should not be more than $40. $50 is too much. And it sucks because I can't ignore this. I'm gonna have to take points off for it being overpriced. And if you would ask me last year, I wouldn't have thought that these mini-scale sets needed minifigures, but since LEGO has once again slightly pushed the envelope of these retail prices, I think for what they're charging us, an exclusive minifigure is needed. Just a simple phase 1 clone trooper like you see here would have worked wonders for this set. It probably would have made a lot more people buy it too. Again, if you would have asked me back in March of 2024 with the mini-scale sets that released then, I would have said that I didn't care that they don't have minifigures, because my thought process was, well, the original mini-scale sets from 2009 and 2010 didn't have figures, so I didn't really care that these ones didn't. But LEGO has raised the price once again, so a figure is needed at least, or make it cheaper. But enough talk about the price, let's actually focus on the build now, and like I said earlier, I like it a lot. The first thing you'll notice is that they went with the Clone Wars version of the Acclamator, the one with the red stripes, and this was the obvious right choice because the ones for episode 2 are cool, but the all gray is just pretty bland and I think it wouldn't look great as a LEGO set, so I'm very happy they went with the Clone Wars one because it looks great and all these pieces are printed. Although one thing that might annoy some people is that the red on the print is actually slightly darker than the red from the brick-built stripe that goes down the middle. It's not super noticeable, but it is there and it might bother people, but I don't really think it's a big deal. Speaking of the stripe that goes down the middle though, I think LEGO did a great job with the technique they used, all the way to the very front where you're gonna find just two little gray pieces that add some detail. The bridge is very simple, but LEGO did a great job on it. It's just as accurate as it needs to be and represents the bridge of an Acclamator very well, and even the small area at the bottom that slopes up to the bridge is very good too. It's really just some simple slope pieces, but it communicates the look very well. The engines are probably my favorite part of this build. There's only 4 of them, but I think they look really good, and honestly, just this whole back area in general looks really good with the fin sticking out and everything. I like how they were able to fit this much detail into this relatively small area. And again, like I said, those engines just look great. There's also some detail and shaping on the bottom of the ship as well. On the front, there's not a whole lot going on, but it is surprisingly accurate to how Acclamators actually look on their bottom side. And then around to the back side of the bottom is where you're going to find the only functionality within this set, and that's the big hangar bay doors that can fold down, and on the inside you're going to see some little white studs that are supposed to represent some clone troopers. This is a great feature that I'm glad LEGO included because it's just fun to play with and the functionality is interesting. Although as you can see, there are those bright green and orange Technic pieces that show through when you open these up. I mean, it's definitely a nitpick on my part because they are covered up. It's not like anyone is looking at the bottom side of this thing, but it would have been kind of nice if they were maybe gray or black. But then from there, you can just very easily fold these hangar bay doors back up. And if you're wondering what the stand looks like, I mean, it's just your basic midi scale stand. It's sleek and simple and looks good with the printed plaque on the front, and there's no special way that it connects to the actual build. It just uses some inverted studs. Like I said earlier, I like this build a lot. It's pretty much perfect in my eyes. There are a few nitpicks I had here and there, so if I had to rate the build alone, I'd probably give it like a 9.8 out of 10, but for the set as a whole, including the price point, it is overpriced. I don't think it should be more than $40. I think most people could agree on that, so sadly, just because of the price, I'm gonna take 2 points off and give it an 8 out of 10. If it was reasonably priced at $40, I could see myself giving this at least a 9.5, maybe even a 10 out of 10, but no, the price ruined it once again. And if you're someone that doesn't own any of the midi scale sets and wants to get one, unless you can find this on sale, I would just pass on it. The Invisible Hand or even the Millennium Falcon from last year are way better options. So let me know what you guys think about this set down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you see on the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at a set that I've been waiting on LEGO to make for years, that being 75405 Home One Starcruiser. This set just released on January 1st with 559 pieces and a retail price of $70 US. And no, I haven't been waiting on a midi scale Home One for years. I've just been waiting on a Home One in general from LEGO. For some reason, they just never make Rebel capital ships besides the Tantivs, which I've never understood, especially with the Home One, because it's really the Rebel capital ship. It belongs to one of the most famous characters in all of Star Wars and leads the Rebel fleet in the Battle of Endor. It's a very iconic ship that LEGO has just ignored for years, and no, the 2009 playset does not count. So I'm just very happy that we finally have this thing. It's not a playset, which is what I want the most, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. Anyways though, on the back of the box you're going to find just another angle of the set, along with some dimensions in the bottom right corner, as well as a picture of the actual ship in the bottom left corner. And then opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find just 5 separately numbered bags, as well as your instruction manual and no sticker sheet, which was a surprise. And since this is an 18+ set, on the inside of the instruction manual, you're going to find some very cool information about the set and the ship itself in Star Wars. There's a lot of cool stuff in here that you can pause and read if you want to. And then throughout the build process, you're actually going to find 3 of these little pop-up paragraphs. The first one talking about Ahsoka Tano, Hera, and R2-D2. The second one talking about the little miniature A-Wing that is included. And the third one talking about Admiral Akbar. But now jumping straight into the build itself, since there are no figures, I have to say, I like this thing a lot. LEGO did a phenomenal job on this. I mean, it is a pretty complex ship, which is actually probably why it took them so long to make it, but in my eyes, they did a very good job here. On the very front, you're going to see some great shaping and angles, where LEGO used some pretty satisfying and fun techniques to pull this shape off. This is probably the least detailed area of the ship, but it still looks really good. But it gets way better when you move on to the middle area. This is where there is the most amount of detail. There's so much going on with all the shaping and different colors and stuff, but at the same time, it's not like there's really much to talk about. There's just a lot of detail to look at. But I mean, still, I think LEGO did a great job. I love how they were able to pull off the complex shape of this ship and have all these little details like the various different colors sprinkled throughout, and also the little blue windows on the side. It just looks great. Again, there's not a lot of individual things to point out. It just looks good as a whole. The bridges also look good too. I do think they maybe could have used a different piece. I'm not really sure which one, but I think they could have a bit of a different design, although that's definitely a tiny nitpick on my part. They look as good as they need to. You also might have noticed that off to the side back here, there is a little mini miniature Nebulon B frigate that is included. It comes off very easily, it's just held on by this transparent rod that sticks out the side, and it is an extremely simple build, but it communicates the look pretty well, and I guess you could technically just put it off to the side wherever you want on the ship. It's gonna look good anywhere. Now, as you guys might know, usually the engines are my favorite part of most LEGO capital ships, and the engines on this set definitely don't disappoint. They look awesome. They're super small compared to engines on maybe like a Star Destroyer or a Venator, but the staggered positioning of them just looks really cool to me. Now, the only real feature or functionality, I guess, of this build is that the whole entire left side can easily come off to reveal a bit of an interior with some nice transparent blue pieces that kind of represent the hangar doors. At the back, you're going to find R2-D2, Harris and Dula, as well as Ahsoka, and then in the middle, you're going to find a very tiny little A-wing build, which I definitely would try to pull out of here and show you guys, but I honestly don't really want to take apart this whole build just to do that, but just know it looks cool on the inside right here. And then in the front, of course, you're going to have Admiral Akbar and his chair, and then to cover all this back up, you just grab that entire side panel and put it back on. It is kind of tricky sometimes, but it's easy to get the hang of. And then really the last thing with this set to see is the stand and the underside. The stand just very easily pops off. It's not held on in a unique way or anything. And then there are some very minor details on the bottom of the ship itself. I'm honestly not sure what it's supposed to look like down here, but it is nice that LEGO actually puts some type of shaping down here and it's not just anti-studs. And then if you're wondering, the stand is just your very basic black mini-scale stand with the printed plaque on the front. I'm gonna go so far to say that I actually think this is the best January set. I mean, I might be a little bit biased just because I really like the Home One and I'm super excited that LEGO finally made it, but I genuinely think it looks really good. I mean, I think this is on the same level as the Millennium Falcon and the Super Star Destroyer. It really is that good of a mini-scale set in my eyes, and it's actually reasonably priced compared to the others. I actually originally thought it was 80 until I bought it and realized it was 70, and that was kind of a surprise to me. Obviously, the perfect price point would probably be 65, but 70 is definitely good compared to the other sets that just released. And I know that with the Acclamator, I complained that it didn't have a minifigure, and that definitely still applies to this set in some sense. I think it would be fun if it did have a little Akbar minifigure, but unlike the Acclamator, this set is not near as overpriced as that set is. And the build itself is pretty much perfect. I mean, I couldn't find any flaws on it besides just nitpicks on my part. So I'm feeling a solid 9 out of 10 on this set. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing. And if you want to check out more videos, you can see on the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75429 AT-AT Driver Helmet. This set just released on March 1st with 730 pieces and a retail price of $70 US. And yes, the helmet line is back. Back in March of 2023, we got these 3 sets right here, the Princess Leia Boushh helmet, Commander Cody, and Captain Rex. And after they were released, the helmet sub-theme was said to be discontinued, but nope, 2 years later in 2025, it looks like LEGO has revived it with this set. And it doesn't stop there. In May, we're also getting Jango Fett as well as Kylo Ren. Opening up the box and digging in, on the inside, you're going to find 6 separately numbered bags, as well as your instruction manual and a sticker sheet with 9 stickers on it, which is kind of a lot for an 18+ set. And since this is an 18+ set, right inside the instruction manual, you're going to find just one page talking about the design of this set, the AT-AT driver in Star Wars, as well as the Battle of Hoth that you can pause and read if you want to. There are no minifigures, so jumping straight into the build, I have to say this thing is actually pretty amazing. The build process was way more complex than I was expecting it to be. There were so many unique techniques used throughout the build that I was not expecting, honestly, which was satisfying and fun to say the least, but the build ended up taking way longer than I was expecting it to. But the end result, again, is pretty incredible. On the stand, you're going to find your little printed plaque that just says LEGO Star Wars and AT-AT driver, and then the stand itself is just going to be your basic helmet stand design that's been on the other helmet sets. Nothing too crazy, but it gets the job done, and it also works as a nice little handle or place to hold the set when you want to pick it up. Taking a look at the face area, this is obviously where this set shines the most. Again, there's just so many complex angles and techniques used throughout. It looks so incredible, although unfortunately it does have the discolored sticker problem, which is especially noticeable with these 2 stickers around the ventilation area. I mean, you can just pretty clearly see the sticker is not the same shade of gray as the actual piece itself, so it just looks kind of off. This is an 18+ set, these should have been printed, and the same problem kind of goes for the stickers on the top, although it's not as big of a deal because those stickers actually cover the entire piece and not just half of it. But the stickers are really the only bad thing I have to say against this set. The rest of it is pretty much perfect. I mean, when you look at it dead on here, you can see it's a pretty menacing looking build that just looks awesome. bottom. On the forehead here, you're going to find 2 printed red Imperial logos, and then you're also going to find some printed pieces around the mouth and eye area underneath the bricks, kind of adding for an extra level of detail. And speaking of the mouth and eye area, that's really where the face shines the most. Again, I sound like a broken record at this point, but the shaping is just phenomenal. There's even that little red piece there that you can barely see right in between those 2 printed pieces. That's supposed to represent this little red square that's on the actual AT-AT driver's helmet. And then right above the eyes, you're going to find 2 tiny little stickers, one red and one gray, that correspond with the red and gray cylinders sticking out of the ventilation at the bottom. On the sides, you can get a nice look at the dome shaping on the top of the head, and then there's also some very minor curvature shaping and detail around where I guess the ears would be. And then around back, you're going to find some more small details like the backs of the oxygen tanks, I guess, I don't know what else to call them, with the one on the right having a sticker, as well as a sticker going down the middle making this red stripe. There's really not much else to see back here. The back and the sides look good, but they're pretty underwhelming compared to the amount of detail that's on the front. And like I've said time and time again throughout this video, the shaping on the face, the complexity and intricate design of the build just makes this set great. And out of the 12 helmet sets LEGO has made since 2020, I'm gonna crown this one as the best. I used to think Commander Cody from 2023 was the best, and don't get me wrong, that set is still top tier, but this one right here, in my opinion, is now gonna take the crown for the #1 best helmet set. So I'm feeling a solid 9.8 out of 10 for this set. I'm taking 0.2 points off just because, again, I don't really like those discolored stickers on the front. If you are a fan of the helmet sub-theme and have bought the other ones that came out in the past, I would highly recommend this to you. It's incredible. I'm pretty sure most of you would enjoy it. So let me know what you guys think about this set down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you can see it on the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at 40765 Kamino Training Facility. This set is 2025's May 4th GWP, containing 190 pieces, and the threshold to get this set was $160, meaning that if you spent at least $160 on LEGO Star Wars sets from a LEGO store or LEGO.com in between May 1st and May 5th, you would get this set included with your order for free. Regardless though, as you can tell, this is definitely one of the most unique GWPs we've ever gotten. I mean, this is clearly a pretty niche set with the clone cadets and a not so recognizable build, and because it's pretty niche, I actually think it works better as a GWP than the one from last year did, but I'll talk about that more here in a minute. On the back of the box, you're going to find another angle of the set showcasing all of the play features, and then opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find just 2 numbered bags as well as your instruction manual. Here we have the clone cadets, the first time LEGO has ever made these guys, and let me tell you, they look really good. There's not a whole lot going on because their outfits are pretty simple, but LEGO actually went the extra mile on these. They have printed arms and dual molded legs, and while the face print along with the printing on the torso and the back definitely isn't the most exciting, I'm just happy that LEGO actually went all the way with this figure and did all the detail they possibly could and made them as accurate as possible, because they definitely don't do that much anymore. However, as good as these guys are, I have seen a few people online talking about how these are the clone cadets' sleeping outfits and not their training outfits, and every time I saw comments about this, I would always just kind of brush it off because I'd be like, well, the set is based off episode 2, we didn't see them in their training outfits in episode 2, we only saw them in these red outfits. However, then I look at the box, and it is called Kamino Training Facility, and we never saw them training in episode 2. We only saw that in the Clone Wars, and we also didn't see any of these side builds in episode 2, like the gun rack or the cannon tower. So that does make me think that, yeah, maybe this set actually kind of is based off the Clone Wars, and it does actually give some validity to the argument that this isn't technically 100% accurate, because these are their wrong outfits. These are their sleeping outfits and not their training outfits that we see in the Clone Wars. But despite these technically being the wrong outfits, they are accurate to what they are supposed to be based off of. Now taking a look at the actual builds of this set, first up here we have the gun rack, and this is just a very simple build that has an extra rifle on it, as you can see, but it is cool that it's included. You can post a clone trooper up next to it with his guns on the rack. And then here we have the tower with the cannons on it, and this is super simple. I honestly wish they put a bit more effort into this. The top can spin, as you can see here, which is pretty cool, but the build itself looks like it came from the early 2000s, and I wish there was just a tad bit more effort put into this. And then here we had the main build being the Kaminoan Enforcer ship, and I'm not gonna lie, unlike the other builds, this looks pretty cool. Like I mentioned earlier, it's clearly a very niche ship. I don't think the average person is going to recognize this, but regardless, I still think it looks pretty interesting. The shaping around the top, or the cockpit, or the head, whatever you want to call it, is nice. There's also some engines on the back, and then these thrusters on the side that can actually rotate around and kind of lock into position if you want to display it in different ways. And then this long piece on the bottom can fold down to where it's completely straight, and this is how the ship is supposed to look. I mean, this is how it looks in episode 2. This is its flying position, and I'm not gonna lie, right, it looks pretty cool like this. I think this ship itself just has a pretty intriguing design compared to a lot of other ships in Star Wars, and that just translates well to a Lego set. However, clearly you can't stand it up like this, so that's why it bends in half so you can have a way to sit it down. And you can actually open up this cockpit. There's really not much of an interior. There's nothing really going on the inside, but obviously if you want to, you can grab one of your clone troopers and stand him up in here and fold the cockpit back up. And that's really all there is to see with this set, just one main build and two very simple side builds. However, like I mentioned earlier, I do want to compare it to last year's GWP, which objectively is a way better set. I mean, this droid carrier looks a lot cooler, it's way more intriguing, it's a more popular vehicle, and because of all those things, I mean, I've said this time and time again, but I think this should have been a normal set. If this was a $30 set last year, it would have flown off the shelves, the community would have loved this thing. However, LEGO decided to make it a GWP, and I just don't think that was the move because this would have been very popular as a normal set, and that's why I think this Kamino set works better as a GWP. It's really not the better set. I mean, I think a lot of people can agree with me on that. The droid carrier is just a little bit cooler. However, it's more niche, less recognizable figures, less recognizable ship, and because of that, it wouldn't have worked as a normal set, unlike the droid carrier. But it really just comes down to what floats your boat. If you're someone that usually spends enough money to get these GWPs, I'm sure you don't care that this droid carrier had a $160 threshold, but if you're someone that doesn't spend so much money to get GWPs, I'm sure you probably wish this droid carrier was a normal set. Anyways though, back to just this Kamino set, like I mentioned earlier, I do actually think there is some validity to the argument that these clone troopers are in their wrong outfits, and also I think that tower build is really basic and could be a tad bit better. So because of those two things, I'm just going to take off 1 point and give it a 9 out of 10. Let me know what you guys think about this May 4th promo down in the comments below. If you do, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more videos, you see on the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75399 Rebel U-Wing Fighter. This set will be releasing on May 1st with 594 pieces and a retail price of $70 US, which is $10 cheaper than the original U-Wing from 2016 that retailed for $80. However, if you adjust that set's price for inflation, it comes out to about $100 in today's money. And of course, I'll briefly compare these two sets towards the end of the video. Now, one thing I have to say about this U-Wing though is that its box art is absolutely beautiful. The set itself might not be that great, but the box art, in my opinion, is one of the best looking that we have gotten in the past few years. I just think it's very aesthetically pleasing with the placement of the build and the planet in the background. It just looks great. And then on the back, you're going to find another render of the set along with some pictures up at the top right showcasing its play features. And then actually opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find just 6 numbered bags, as well as your instruction manual and a small sticker sheet with just 6 stickers. Moving on to the minifigures, you get 4 included in this set, and first up here we have the ISB Tactical Agent. And this figure looks great. There's loads of detail in the front with continuous printing going from the legs to the chest, and then on the back you're going to find some great detail as well. And he also comes with a riot shield, which I think looks really cool. Now I do have to say, based off the torso and leg printing, this figure does look like it should have some sort of helmet, because it's clearly very reminiscent of Stormtrooper armor, but I mean, hey, this is how they appear in Andor, so I guess it's accurate. And then next up here we have the figure in this set that's getting all the talk right now, that being Dedra Meero. And this should be the highlight minifigure of this set. However, I'm just gonna go ahead and get the elephant in the room out of the way. Her legs look downright awful, and that's because, well, as you can see, the white on her legs is clearly a different shade of white from the white on the torso, and this is because it's white printing on top of a black leg piece, so it just makes it faded. And right when this set got revealed, everyone, myself included, knew this was going to be a problem with this figure, but actually seeing it in person, it's a lot worse than I was expecting it to be. It genuinely just does not look good. The white on her legs looks like a wet paper towel or something. It's just bad. And obviously on the box they're going to show it off as perfect white, but in person it's not perfect white at all. And this has been happening for years now, and I mean, LEGO, just fix it already. Just put 2 layers of printing on top of these pieces so it doesn't bleed through like this. But on the bright side though, the rest of the figure looks great, especially that hat hair piece combo. I mean, as you can see here, it looks amazing, and I'm sure this could be used on other figures as well. And then she's also going to have a double-sided face. Anyways though, next up here we have the man himself, Cassian Andor, and this figure is fairly simple. It's just his season 2 outfit. However, it looks really good. There's great printing on the front and the back, and then he too is also going to have a double-sided face. And then lastly we have what I think is the actual highlight minifigure of this set, being K2SO, and he looks great. I'm very happy they finally remade this character, and they did a good job on him. He's fairly simple, but he looks accurate and detailed. And if you're wondering, here's what he looks like compared to the older version, and as you can tell, they're pretty much exactly the same, exact same mold and everything. However, there is some very minor differences on the chest printing, as you can see here, and then the older model from 2016 actually has printing on the sides and back of his head, which, to be honest, I think makes it look a little bit cooler. However, if you don't have that old one, don't go spend a bunch bunch of money on it, I do think it's a bit better, but this new one is still great. Overall, I think this lineup on paper is solid. Some of you might think that 4 figures is really not enough for a $70 set, and I mean, I could get behind this, but at the same time, I don't really care. I think 4 figures is fine for $70, and on top of that, at the time of me recording this video at least, we haven't seen the episode of Andor this set is actually based off of, so we don't really know what other characters are in the scene. I mean, maybe they could have thrown in like a Krennic or something, but I think for the most part, this lineup is good. And when I say lineup, I just mean the lineup of characters included in this set, not their overall quality, because again, Dedra Meero's legs are not good. Now moving on to the actual model itself, there's some things I like about it, and there's some things I don't like about it. The first thing I want to say though is I really appreciate how sleek and clean looking the model is. It's by no means perfect, but it is very clean looking, which I really like. On the wings, you're going to find some very minimal detail with some stickers, and also a few different colors going on with the white and the blue and the yellow, and there's like some mix match detail here and there to kind of give it that rusty rebel ship look. And then right in front of the cockpit, you're going to find a small little yellow sticker adding some detail, and then right below that, you're going to have the 2 main cannons with some spring-loaded shooters. And these spring-loaded shooters have pretty much the exact same function as the old one did, where there's just this brick-built button on top that you can press down and fire them. And I'm not gonna lie, this is actually really satisfying. Now the cockpit windshield piece is printed, and it's supposed to be white, the same shade of white as the actual bricks. However, as you can tell, it basically has the same problem that Dedra's legs have, where it's a very, very faded white that just doesn't match the rest of the ship. And if you look on the box art, they depict it as completely white, matching the rest of the ship. However, in person, it's not that way at all. And I'm not gonna go so far to say that this is false advertising, but it is definitely a pretty strong miscommunication to the consumer. Anyways though, the area around the cockpit looks really good with all these slope pieces giving it a very clean look in my opinion. However, as you can tell, they come up over the windshield piece a little bit, creating a bit of a lip, and because of this, it's kind of hard to just manually grab the windshield piece and open it. So they did pretty much the exact same thing they did on the old one, if any of you guys had that set, where there's this little button on the back that you can push inwards, and it kind of pops the windshield piece open to where you can easily grab it and open it up. And then inside the actual cockpit, there's going to be some very, very minimal detail with just a brown seat as well as a stickered control panel. And of course, you can grab Cassian and set him in the cockpit and fold the windshield back down. And overall, this whole front area, excluding the windshield piece, looks very good. Again, it's super clean and I like that. However, as clean and as smooth looking as this area may be, like I'm sure you've seen others point out, it is way too narrow. And you can easily see this when you look at an actual picture of the U-Wing from Star Wars and then compare it to this set. It's just too narrow. It's not anything drastic, but I really think it should be about 1 or 2 studs wider. Regardless though, back behind the windshield piece, you're going to find this little area that's basically supposed to represent the engine of the ship, which I think looks pretty cool. And then right behind that, we have the actual engine thrusters themselves. And I have to say, this is probably the worst area of this build. Now, don't get me wrong, I think the actual engines themselves, like the individual cylinders, look really good. Individually, they are clean and detailed and built well. However, the reason I say this is the worst area of the ship is because they are way too big. And this is another thing you can see when you just go look at an actual picture of the U-Wing in Star Wars. The engines are a bit smaller and they're closer together. However, on this one, they're way too large. Again, they individually look good, but they're way too large. They're too spread apart. As you can see here, there's this pretty large gap in between them. And I mean, as a whole, they look all right. However, it definitely throws off the proportions of the ship a little bit. On the very back here at the bottom, there's going to be this piece you can fold down if you want to. It doesn't reveal anything. You can't see into the interior through here, but I mean, hey, it's here to fold up and down if you want to do that. And then the sides of the hull look all right. There's good shaping and a little bit of detail with the windows there. And then you can fold these doors down on either side. They technically should be sliding doors. However, I'll talk about that more here in a little bit. But regardless, you can fold these down. It is a bit tricky though, as you can see here. I wish there was like a small handle sticking out or something to make this easier. But anyways, when they're folded down, they reveal a very, very small and minimal interior. There's really nothing going on in here. Literally just a small seat and then a small sticker control panel back there that you can barely see. It's kind of hard to get on camera. And if you want to, I guess you can take K2SO or one of the other figures and put them in here. It's very crammed and hard to do. You kind of just have to throw them in here and then fold the doors up. But I mean, if you try hard enough, it is doable. And then lastly, for this bottom section on the front here, there is this sloped transparent piece that adds some detail and you can kind of see into the interior from here. Now, the main play feature with this set is obviously the wings being able to open, and this is very easy to do. You literally just pull them apart and fold them back. And it uses the exact same technique as the old one, where there is a ball joint on the front that holds them closed and then a ball joint on the back that holds them open. And when the wings are open and it's in its flying mode, I guess you could call it, it does look pretty good for the most part. However, it does make the cockpit area look really, really small. Really going back to what I said earlier with this front area being too narrow, the length of the cockpit is fine, but again, it's just too narrow and it looks even worse when the wings are open. Now, the last thing I want to do is compare it to the 2016 model, and as you can tell, the 2016 2016 model is quite a bit larger. However, like I said at the beginning, it's technically a $100 set when you adjust it for inflation, and yeah, there's definitely a $30 difference between these two models. As you can tell, the 2016 model has way better proportions, it's the correct width, it's not too narrow, and the engines are actually the proper size, they're not too big. And then perhaps the main thing it has over the newer one is that it has actual sliding doors, which is how the doors are actually supposed to be because that's how they appear in Rogue One. And on top of that, it has a way more roomier interior, and it has these little turrets that fold out the side, which were a pretty prominent feature of the ship in Rogue One. And while I do have to say the newer one is overall a little bit more detailed on the outside and more clean looking, the older one beats it in pretty much every other category with proportions and sizing and especially playability. And all of this brings me to the conclusion that I really think this set should have been $100. I mean, for what we get, $70 is definitely a great price. This set is not overpriced or underpriced at all in my opinion. However, making it $30 cheaper than the older model, again with inflation adjusted, just sacrificed way too much in my opinion. I appreciate LEGO trying to make this a cheaper set, however in this case it was just not worth it. And I think if this set was $100, it would feel way more complete, and it would obviously have all the same play features and be as accurate as the older model, which I think a lot of people would be willing to spend the extra money for. Oh, and of course not to mention the problem with the windscreen piece and Dedra's legs. So because of that, I'm feeling a solid 7.5 out of 10 for this set. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you see on the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75406 Kylo Ren's Command Shuttle. This set will be releasing on May 1st with 386 pieces and a retail price of $70 US. Yes, this set is going to retail for $70 US, really making it one of the most overpriced sets of the year so far. But real quick, I want to talk about the box art, and that's because the all black 18+ box art is really hindering this set. And that's clearly because the ship is all black and there's just no contrast at all. The ship just blends in with the box art. Obviously there's that red glow behind the ship, but it doesn't really help that much. And from far away, this thing is just not very noticeable. And when most people walk into a LEGO store, I feel like this is going to be one of the last sets that catches their eye just because there's no contrast on the box art. The all black 18+ box art was a decent gimmick for a while. There's some sets it definitely worked with and looked cool with, but in this set in particular, it's really handicapping it. And in my opinion, I think it's about time LEGO goes back to colored box arts for these sets, or at the very least, a colored background with the black trim at the bottom. But front box art aside, the rest of the box art looks cool. You're going to see a back view of the ship on the side, as well as a much better picture on the back where you're going to see it in its landing position, as well as some pictures from the ship in the movies. And then on the right side, you're going to have the dimensions of the ship, which is 5 inches wide and 13 inches tall. Now opening up the box and dumping out the contents, you're going to find just 3 numbered bags. Yeah, 3 numbered bags for $70. 2 bags for the wings and then 1 bag for the cockpit of the ship. You're also going to have your instruction manual where on the first few pages there is some nice information to read about Kylo Ren's Command Shuttle and the design process of the ship that you can pause and read if you want to. Now taking a look at the actual model itself, I have to say the wingspan is actually quite a bit larger than I was expecting it to be, and the ship overall definitely has its highs and its lows, a lot of lows. One thing I do have to say though is I really enjoyed the build process. It was super fast and fun and simple. There were just some pretty interesting techniques used throughout the build that made it kind of fun. But that's just the build process. The actual set itself is definitely not perfect. But first I want to take a look at the display stand. On the front you're obviously going to have your printed plaque that says Kylo Ren's Command Shuttle, and then the display stand itself is just your typical MIDI scale display stand. It's pretty much exactly the same as the other ones, and if you're wondering how it connects to the ship, there's just a Technic rod that sticks out that you can use to very easily attach and detach the ship from. The top of the cockpit, or the hull, whatever you want to call it, actually looks pretty good. There's a fair amount of detail on it, and then you're going to have the engines back here that also look quite nice. They're very simple, but they get the job done. However, despite the top of this area having some detail, the actual front of the cockpit itself is way too narrow. Yes, I know in universe this area of the ship is slightly shaped like a triangle, like what they tried to do in this set here, but they overdid it. The front is just way too narrow and it kind of throws it off for me. Based on that transparent piece right there, you can tell it's only 2 studs wide when it definitely should have been 4 studs wide. It would have made it look way more accurate and way more proportional. However, this cockpit actually does have one cool thing about it, and that's that if you break the top pieces off, you can just barely see back there a little General Hux and a little Kylo Ren. And when you come to this part of the build in the instructions, there's actually actually a little paragraph at the bottom that you can pause and read if you want to. Now, the inside of the wings, specifically just the inside, actually look pretty good. There's not a whole lot going on. It's really just the top of the plates with some minor detailing here and there, along with some decent detail at the bottom, and then you have the actual cannons on each wing that look pretty good. However, it starts to go downhill very quickly when you fold the wings up into its landing position, and that's because the bottom of the wings are just straight anti-studs. There's nothing going on, just straight bland anti-studs. And to be brutally honest, I think this just looks downright ugly. I think they definitely should have put some inverted tiles back here just to give it some detail and not make it so bland and boring looking with the wings folded up like this. But no, it's literally just the bottoms of the plates, and again, it just does not look good at all. If you are someone that actually ends up getting this set, the best way to display it is without a doubt with the wings open so you don't have to see the outside of them. And speaking of opening and closing the wings, I guess I should show you how you do that. There's no special technique or function or anything, they're just on hinges and you just pull them open and close them back. And I'm not gonna lie, using just hinges to connect the wings here is not the greatest design choice. One, because the wings are very flimsy and wobbly, as you can see here. They just move around all over the place and can break off very easily. And also the wings are a bit heavy, and sometimes the hinges on their own just aren't strong enough to hold them up. So when you try to pose it in different positions, they tend to just fall all the way down. And I think for a set you're paying $70 for, this is honestly just kind of unacceptable. There's really no reason as to why they couldn't have used some type of technic method to connect these wings. It would have made them a lot stronger and have a lot more posability. But no, there's just hinges, and it's just kind of cheap feeling in my opinion. Except the set itself is not cheap. You're paying $70 for it. Now again, it's not completely terrible. There are some good things like the detail around the cockpit and the detail of the inside of the wings, but those few things alone really don't make up for all the bad things that I mentioned. And then again, on top of all of that, it's overpriced. $70 is just too far. I think this would have been a great maybe $55 to $60 set, but $70, no. And I would say to wait until this set goes on sale somewhere from $50 to $60 before you get it. However, at the same time, there's two other midi-scale sets that are in that $50 to $60 price range, being the Acclamator and the Invisible Hand, that are both significantly better than this set. And it's not only because they're cheaper, it's because their builds are just better looking, and they have way better structural integrity. And don't even get me started on the other ones you could get for $70. I'm feeling a solid 6 out of 10 for this set. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you see on the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75407 Brick Built Star Wars logo. This set just released on May 1st with 700 pieces and a retail price of only $60 US, which is actually a pretty good deal for this in my opinion. And this might be one of the most bizarre, well, I don't want to say bizarre, but unique LEGO Star Wars sets we've ever gotten. And the reason I say that is just because we've never gotten something like this before. And I think from a collector's standpoint, the idea for a set like this is awesome. And as you'll see later on in the video, this set is surprisingly very impressive. Anyways though, on the back of the box, you're going to find a few pictures. One is a picture showing this set on a shelf and how it's supposed to be displayed, along with this really awesome picture of A New Hope with like the Death Star in the background and some X-Wings and TIE Fighters going up to it, and then the dimensions of the set at the far right corner. Opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find 6 numbered bags, as well as 2 instruction manuals. One instruction manual is going to be for the top half of the build, and the other instruction manual is going to be for the bottom half of the build. And right inside the first instruction manual, you're going to find some paragraphs talking about the design process of this set, as well as the Star Wars logo itself that you can pause and read if you want to. And let me tell you, I am genuinely pretty impressed with this set. I was not expecting it to be this good. The actual build process is extremely intricate and intriguing, and overall just very enjoyable. It was just super fun to see how each letter of the logo came together with so many awesome and unique techniques used all throughout this build. And if you're someone that really cares about build process and build experience, you're most likely gonna love this set. It was definitely one of the most fun builds I've had on any set I've gotten recently. And the overall model is pretty much perfect. I mean, it looks super clean. I'm genuinely impressed on how they were able to pull off the shapes of these letters with Lego pieces and do such a perfect job at it. And when you look at it closely, you can really tell how intricate this build is by simply noticing all the tiny little lines and cracks that are all the small pieces that go into these letters. I also like how smooth the build is. There's no studs showing on the letters themselves. There's only studs showing on the black pieces that are in between the letters, which I honestly think is really cool because one, it's a nice little background, around. And 2, as you can see, they kind of did some greebling with these black pieces, and that gives them kind of a rougher look, which creates a nice little contrast from the smoothness of the letters. Now, if you're wondering, yes, there is one little feature or Easter egg, I guess, within this set, which is actually up here on the top of the T. You can just pull this top piece off, and it reveals the opening scene to A New Hope, with a little miniature Star Destroyer and a little miniature Tantive 4, and then a tiny little half-circle tile piece that I guess is supposed to represent Tatooine. And as you can see here, they sit on top of these little dark red transparent studs, and these are just very simple micro builds. I mean, the Tantive is literally only 3 pieces, and the Star Destroyer is only about 6 pieces, but for what they're supposed to be, they work really well, and honestly, I just think it's awesome that they were able to hide an Easter egg within this build. If you're someone that has a large LEGO Star Wars display, or just a LEGO Star Wars display in general, you would most likely love this set, because it goes with a display like this so well. It looks good, it's simple, it's clean, and it just makes sense. However, there is one thing I briefly want to talk about though, and that's that if you remember back when the information for this set originally leaked back in like, I don't even know, I want to say maybe September of 2024, it was originally rumored to include a George Lucas minifigure, and then obviously that rumor turned out to be not true. However, I do have to say, I think a figure, preferably a George Lucas figure, would have gone a really long way with this. Now, without a doubt, it most likely would have raised the price up to probably $70, but I think a lot of people would have enjoyed that. And if not a George Lucas minifigure, maybe a Darth Vader minifigure, just something to be included with it. I mean, I personally don't care that much because what we do have is great and for a good price as well, but I know there's a lot of people that do care about that, and I have to say it definitely would have enhanced the set quite a bit. So because of that, I'm gonna take off half a point and give it a 9.5 out of 10. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you see on the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75408 Jango Fett Helmet. This set just released on May 1st with 616 pieces and a retail price of $70 US. And it was designed by Niels Bundesen, I hope I said that name right, who has designed a lot of the 18 plus sets recently, most notably the midi-scale Home One, the midi-scale Millennium Falcon, and the buildable Droideka. And after years of waiting, we finally have a Jango Fett helmet. I'd say without a doubt, this was one of the most overdue helmet sets until now. And it also finally completes the Mandalorian helmet collection. We got Boba Fett's in 2020, the Mandalorian in 2022, and now we have Jango Fett. And as exciting as this set is, there is one big glaring issue with it, and that's those stickers on top of the forehead, but I'll talk about those more here in a minute. On the back of the box, you're going to find another render of the set showing how you can move the rangefinder down, as well as some pictures at the bottom, 2 being some very awesome pictures of Jango Fett in Attack of the Clones, and then of course a picture of the dimensions in the middle. Opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find 5 separate numbered bags, as well as your instruction manual, which of course in the first few pages has some paragraphs about this set and paragraphs about Jango Fett that you can pause and read if you want to. And then we have the sticker sheet with 14 separate stickers on it, just ridiculous. Now here is the actual finished model, and I have to say the build itself is beautiful. I mean, it's pretty much perfect and completely accurate in terms of shaping and everything like that. It couldn't be better, and we'll take a look at all that stuff, but man, first I gotta talk about these stickers. And as you can see, they just don't look good. They look really bad. They're continuous and they go all around the build, as you can see here, literally all around the top of the head. And first of all, if you're someone that's not good at putting on stickers like me, you're gonna have a rough time with this. It's just most likely not gonna be lined up and not gonna look very good. And then also, of course, the color of the stickers themselves is a slightly different shade of gray than the actual color of the pieces, which is a problem with all stickers. And at this point, I just think 18 plus sets should not have stickers anymore. They should have only printed pieces. I mean, one, because they're for adult collectors, but also because you're paying a lot of money for these. I mean, this is $70. That's not cheap. It should be the highest quality possible, which to me at least would be all printed pieces. And speaking of a set with only printed pieces, the Kylo Ren helmet that also just released on May 1st that I reviewed a few days ago has all printed pieces, and it looks absolutely amazing. I mean, the face area alone on this set is really impressive. However, that's Kylo Ren, a cool character, but this is Jango Fett, a set that is obviously going to be way more popular and way more cared about by the community, except it doesn't have printed pieces. It has these stickers that just look flat out awful. I mean, LEGO, these just should have been printed pieces. It's not going to hurt your profit margins that much to print these pieces. But on the bright side though, like I briefly mentioned earlier, everything besides the stickers is pretty much perfect. On the stand, you're of course going to have your little printed plaque that says Jango Fett, and then like usual, the stand itself is just your typical helmet set stand. Very sleek, very clean looking. It's what they've been using for years now, and it works. And another thing I like about these stands is that they work as a great handle to to be able to pick up the set and easily move it around. The shaping around the face and the eyes is gorgeous. There's a lot of fun and satisfying techniques going on to be able to pull off the shape of Jango Fett's helmet here. Now, along this face area, there are also some very minor gaps. They're definitely not that big of a deal, but if you look for them, you can't find them, and I thought they were worth pointing out. The sides of the helmet look great too. On the left side, there's not much going on, but it looks good. However, on the right side is where you're obviously going to find his rangefinder, and of course, it can move up and down as you can see here, and you can display it like this if you want to. Now, I don't think it looks the greatest displayed like this, but it's still cool that this is a feature. And if you're wondering what the top of the helmet looks like, it's just studs, which is fine. I mean, this is typical for LEGO Star Wars helmet sets. And then like the front, the back is also going to look very clean and sleek. And there's actually some cool details going on back here with those gray cheese slopes in the middle. I think they give it a nice look. I know this technically isn't the part of the helmet that you're supposed to see at all times, but there's still detail back here. Overall, the actual build and shaping and techniques used throughout this set are pretty much perfect. I've said that again and again, the actual build itself is beautiful, and I'm really happy they've finally completed the Mandalorian collection. However, as you read in the title, LEGO really fumbled by using stickers on this set. For a set like this that's supposed to have continuous detail going all the way around, it just needs to have printed pieces because as stickers, they're just too easy to misalign. And honestly, if these pieces were printed, I'd probably give this set a 10 out of 10, but unfortunately they're not, and they don't look very good. So because of that, I'm gonna take off 2 points and give it an 8 out of 10. Let me know what you guys think about this set down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you see them on the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75409 and Jango Fett's Slave 1. Yeah, the Slave 1. This set just released on May 1st with 2,970 pieces and a retail price of $300 US. And it was designed by Jackson Hughes, the same person responsible for sets like the Emperor's Throne Room diorama, the 332nd Ahsoka Clone Trooper Battle Pack, and the New Republic E-Wing vs Shin Hati Starfighter. And after 22 years, we finally have a new Jango Fett Slave 1, and it's a UCS model. I was not expecting them to do that at all. But hey, I'm all here for it. It looks awesome, especially on the box art. Now recently, I actually haven't really been liking the black box arts on these 18+ sets. I liked them in the beginning with some of those sets, but at this point, I think it's about time LEGO switches it up. However, I do have to say, this Slave 1 box art looks really great. The black and the blue go very nicely together. Anyways though, on the back of the box, there's quite a bit going on, with another big render of the set showcasing it displayed on its stand, along with Jango and Boba at the bottom, as well as the seismic charge that's included. And then you're gonna have the dimensions off to the left that you can pause and read if you want to. And then at the bottom, you're going to have a series of pictures that are more angles of this build, as well as pictures of the actual Slave 1 in episode 2. And then opening up this massive box and digging in, on the inside, you're going to find 23 separate numbered bags, along with an unnumbered bag that contains some larger pieces, the windshield piece in this brown paper bag, and then your 2 instruction manuals that come in their own brown paper bag. And I'm not going to lie, I've never seen instructions come in a bag like this before, but I have to say I'm not the biggest fan of it, mainly because it just doesn't protect them as good as those other cardboard cases. Anyways though, since this is a UCS set, of course, inside the first instruction manual, you're going to find lots of information about the set, the designers of the set, and the ship in Star Wars that you can pause and read if you want to as I turn through each page. Taking a look at the 2 figures included in this set, just being Jango Fett and Boba Fett, there's quite a bit of controversy surrounding these 2 figures, but I mean, that's kind of expected at this point with every new LEGO Star Wars minifigure. And I guess first we'll start off with the one that is getting the most criticism, and that is young Boba Fett. And overall, I think this figure does look good. I mean, it's not like it's not aesthetically pleasing or just aesthetically ugly in any way. Like, the figure itself looks fine. However, there are 2 main things people are complaining about with this figure that I think are both valid criticism. The first one is the hair hairpiece. They used that hairpiece from one of the Ninjago minifigures. I think it was a Ninjago hairpiece at least. But regardless, on young Boba Fett, it doesn't look that good. I mean, it just doesn't match his hairstyle at all. There's no reason why they couldn't have just gone ahead and reused the one from the 2017 Boba Fett. And then the second thing is that obviously his arms are the wrong color. They should be dark blue when they're sand blue, as you can see here. And this is again something that the 2017 Boba Fett got right, but this one didn't. And again, the figure looks fine. I mean, the arms don't look bad. They look good and they go with the torso. However, the reason people complain about it is that it's simply just not accurate. And you know, if LEGO got it right in 2017, why can't they get it right again in 2025? It's just kind of frustrating, especially considering the fact that you are paying $300 for this set. That's not cheap. But on the other hand, Jango Fett actually looks pretty much perfect in my opinion. I think it's safe to say this is the best Jango Fett LEGO has ever made. There's absolutely beautiful printing all around on the chest and the torso and the arms. This is the first arm printed Jango Fett we've ever gotten. And he's also got that new rangefinder rangefinder piece up there that looks amazing. Now, one thing people are complaining about with this figure is that his jetpack is gunmetal gray and not silver, because silver is the color that LEGO previously used on all these Jango Fett jetpacks. And while silver does look good and it does match the rest of his printing, the gunmetal gray isn't inaccurate. I mean, if you look in episode 2, his jetpack is a dark gray color, so I think the color they used here works completely fine. But anyways though, underneath his jetpack, you're going to find even more printing, and when you take his helmet off, he comes with a hairpiece that you can put on in replace of it, and as you can see, he's got a great face print with another double-sided face print. I mean, overall, one figure is really good, being Jango Fett, and the other one should be better, being Boba Fett, so it's kind of like a 50-50 split. Yes, it's disappointing that Boba Fett is not as good as he should be, but hey, at the very least, I'm happy Jango Fett looks as good as he does. Anyways though, now moving on to the actual model itself, unsurprisingly, it looks really good. Nowadays, LEGO has set the standard for UCS sets pretty high, and I think this set meets it. Overall, it's a very gorgeous and detailed build, and we'll dive into all of that, but first, I want to take a look at the display plaque and the stand. The display plaque is, of course, printed as you can see here, and it looks good for the most part, besides maybe that mold dimple right in the middle, and if you want to, you can pause and read this. There's a lot of information on here. However, one thing that is kind of annoying is that it does slightly get covered up by the bottom of the ship. I wouldn't say it's that big of a deal, but at some angles, it does get covered up quite a bit, and it is kind of hard to read unless you take it off. And as for the rest of the stand goes, I mean, it's a pretty basic Technic structure. It's definitely not the prettiest looking UCS stand, but I mean, it kind of has to be designed like this to hold the ship up. And speaking of holding up the ship, it's super easy to take on and off the stand. There's just these two hooks that stick out the back that it rests on pretty easily. Now, as for the interior, or I guess the cockpit goes, you can very easily pop the windshield piece off to reveal a pretty nice looking interior. And as for the windshield piece itself goes, as you can see, it is a pretty large piece, and it looks good for the most part. However, there are these two white stickers at the bottom, and on the actual transparent piece itself, they look good and add some detail, but unfortunately, as you can tell, they have the same problem as every sticker nowadays, where their color is slightly off from the color of the bricks, and as you can see here, their white is not matching the white of the actual pieces. And even if these weren't stickers and they were printed, it would still have the same problem as we saw on the U-Wing, and at this point, I wish LEGO would just fix this already, either fix the stickers or put 2 layers of printing just to fix this issue. Now, inside the cockpit, there actually is this section that is removable that you can just very easily slide out, and this is the area with really the main driver's seat along with all the controls. You can see it's actually fairly detailed with lots of sticker control panels, along with this big red targeting sensor here on the front, and then of course you can grab Jango Fett with his jetpack removed and sit him in the front cockpit seat, and take Boba Fett and put him in one of the back seats. And then again, you can just very easily slide this thing back into the cockpit, and it's honestly pretty satisfying. Now, you also might have noticed there are 2 more seats right under this removable section, and obviously there's not 2 other figures included in this set to be able to put in these seats, so I guess if you have any extra ones lying around, you can throw them in there if you want to. And then lastly, for this interior space, there is this little sticker up here at the top that has some Star Wars writing on it that I believe translates to 00V04. If I'm wrong, please correct me in the comments, but either way, it's there, but when you put the cockpit windshield piece back on, it gets covered up. Now, the area around the cockpit on the outside looks amazing. There's loads and loads of detail and great shaping on either side. In my opinion, this area is overall a big improvement from the 2015 Slave one. As good as that set is, this one does just look a tad bit better when it comes to shaping and detail. And also, just who doesn't love the color scheme of Jango Fett Slave 1? I mean, that sand green with the dark blue looks really good together. However, there is one slight issue I have with this area, and that's that there are these gaps on either side. Well, actually, I don't even want to call them gaps. They kind of just look like holes right there. And honestly, when I was building this set and I first noticed these, I thought I'd done something wrong, but no, this is actually how it's supposed to look. And it's definitely not the end of the world, but if you look closely, these holes or gaps, whatever you want to call them, are pretty noticeable. The wings, however, look pretty good. They're very detailed and they can move up and down, as you can see here. They move in unison and it's really awesome. You can kind of put them all the way back or put them all the way down or kind of put them at an angle in between. It looks good either way. And then the area where the wings connect to the actual ship is very heavily detailed, as you can see here. There is a ton of greebling going on, and I'm not gonna lie, the build process for this area was very tedious and borderline frustrating, but the end result is really good looking, as you can see. And then moving down to the bottom half of this back area, just like the top, there's also amazing shaping and some amazing detail down here. I mean, they really did blow it out of the water with the shaping alone on this whole back shell area. However, there is one obvious issue down here, and that is these large stickers. I think the green and blue ones are actually fine. The real problem is those yellow ones. And as you can see, the yellow on these stickers is brutally off color from the yellow of the pieces. And it's very noticeable. Even from far away, it sticks out like a sore thumb. The off shading is just brutal. Again, the bigger ones that are green and blue look fine. However, these yellow ones for sure should have been printed. On the bright side though, the bottom area of the front front half of the ship looks great. On either side here, you're going to have a small sticker that translates to no step, along with this black piece that's supposed to be a little cannon. And then on the front, you're going to have a few stickers with lots and lots of green tiles going all the way down to the bottom, where you're going to find the two main front cannons, along with even more great looking detail on either side. And as for the cannons go, they are connected so they can spin around in unison, and they have a fairly large range of motion, and also the top barrels of these cannons can kind of move up and down independently. I'm not sure if they do that in universe, but on this set, this is a feature if you want to do that. Spinning around the model to the back, as you can see, there's quite a bit going on back here. Lots of very extensive detail from the top to the bottom, and of course the engines look absolutely amazing. However, the main thing to see back here is of course the seismic charge. That's tucked away in its own little compartment here, and the seismic charge itself actually looks really cool. Now it is completely all stickers. I did not know this until I built this set. I was expecting these to be printed pieces, but no, everything you see here is stickers on the seismic charge, which I think is just a bit unnecessary. For $300, can we at least have some printed parts in this set? Regardless though, it looks good if you put the stickers on right, and then of course you can put it back in its little compartment. Now taking the set off the stand and laying it down on its back, which is technically its landing position, it actually does look really cool like this. This is definitely a way you could display it. However, the main thing to see when you have it landed like this is this awesome play feature down here at the bottom, where you can actually push down and open this gray ramp right here, and it basically reveals a door into the interior. Now obviously when you look down in there, there's nothing to see, but it's really cool that they included this feature. And of course you can have Jango propped up on the ramp like this, and it looks awesome. And then when you want to close it, there's this lever at the top that you just push down and the ramp folds back up. And I'm not gonna lie, this is super satisfying and fun to do. Now giving an overall conclusion and rating to this set is actually kind of challenging. Yes, the model itself looks beautiful. I mean, that's to nobody's surprise. Every UCS set generally looks pretty good. However, I personally hold these UCS sets to higher standards, so little things like the minifigure inaccuracies as well as the stickers just matter more. And I really do think there are way too many stickers on this set. There isn't one printed piece besides the display plaque and the minifigures obviously, and for $300 that's just pretty ridiculous in my opinion. And also again, like I mentioned earlier, some of those stickers, specifically the yellow ones at the bottom, are very off-colored. And then of course you have the inaccuracies with Boba Fett, so it's just little things like that that matter more in these UCS sets, to me at least, because you're paying a lot more for them. I mean, this is $300, that's very expensive, and little things like that just need to be improved upon. However, overall the build does look really good, and that's why I said it's kind of hard to rate this set, but I think I'm gonna land on a good rating of 8.8 out of 10. If the little things like the stickers and Boba Fett were fixed, this could very easily be a 10 out of 10 set, but they're not fixed, and they are kind of a blatant issue for a UCS set like this, so I'm landing on an 8.8. Let me know what you guys think about this set down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more videos, you should on the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75415 Kylo Ren Helmet. This set will be releasing on May 1st with 529 pieces and a retail price of $70 US. And dare I say, up until this point, I personally think this has been one of the most overdue LEGO Star Wars helmets. But regardless, this set is part of celebrating the 10th anniversary of The Force Awakens. Yes, that movie is 10 years old now. And this is actually something I forgot to mention with the midi-scale Kylo Ren command shuttle that I reviewed a few days ago. Both of these sets collectively are kind of supposed to be a mini celebration for the 10th year anniversary of that movie. And if you guys watched my review on that command shuttle, you know I did not like that set at all, so hopefully the helmet is going to be a bit better, and based off this box art, I think it's going to be. And speaking of the box, on the back you're going to find another angle of the helmet, as well as some pictures at the bottom showing Kylo Ren in the movies, as well as the dimensions in the middle. And then opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find just 5 numbered bags, as well as your instruction manual, which on the first few pages is going to have some information about Kylo Ren with a quote, and some information about the set that you can pause and read if you want to. Now here's the actual model itself, and I think it looks good, but my opinions for it for the most part are kind of all over the place. But I guess first we'll take a look at the stand, where on the front you're going to have a little printed display plaque that says Kylo Ren, and then from there the stand itself is just the exact same stand design they've used on every other LEGO Star Wars helmet set, so there's nothing new to see here, but it's a good design and it's always worked. Now if you couldn't tell already, the face is really where you're going to find all of the detail and highlights of this set, and I think it looks pretty much perfect. They did an amazing job on the face, and not to mention every single one of these pieces are printed. There are absolutely no stickers, so it was super fun and easy to put together, and it looks really good because there's really no risk for error if you're someone that's bad at putting on stickers like I am. And then also of course the shaping on the mouth guard and the shaping around the eye area looks amazing as well. Again, with just the front face alone, they really blew it out of the water. I'm super happy with how it looks. But the reason I said the front is where the only detail is because when you go to the back, there's really not much going on. It's just complete studs. And I mean, there's nothing really wrong with this. It's just that if you're wondering if there's any detail back here, there's not much to see besides studs. There's definitely some great shaping, but there's really nothing else going on. However, one issue I do kind of have with the back down here is that that from some angles, it looks like the back gets kind of cut off too high. And what I mean by that is I think the back should just come down a bit further, maybe just one stud or two studs, because from certain angles, especially straight onto the build, it does look like the back just gets cut off a bit too high. I mean, I might be the only person that cares about this, but I thought it was worth pointing out. Now, another thing I want to mention with this set is that compared to some of the other helmets, especially ones that have released recently, it does look a tad bit small. And there's really nothing inherently wrong with this. I assume it's to scale with the other helmets. However, it's just a bit smaller, and it also has a significantly low piece count compared to the other ones, with only 529 pieces, actually making it the helmet with the second lowest piece count just behind the Scout Trooper, while most of the other ones, especially these two I'm showing here, have over 700. And again, there's something wrong with this. However, it does make me think this set could have been a bit cheaper. I really appreciate the consistency of having all these helmet sets retail for $70. However, this one is a little bit smaller and has a significantly lower piece count, so it really does make me think this could have been a bit cheaper at $60 instead of $70. But overall, I think for the most part it looks good, especially on the face. They did an amazing job, and I love how it has all printed pieces. If you're someone that's not really into helmets and you want to get one, I'd honestly recommend the AT-AT driver over this. However, if you're someone that does collect helmets, I think this is kind of a necessary addition to the collection just because it's Kylo Ren, and like I mentioned at the beginning, I do think this has been kind of overdue. Anyways though, I'm feeling a solid 8 out of 10 for this set. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you see on the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75416 Chopper. This set just released on May 1st with 1,039 pieces and a retail price of $100 US. And as you can tell from the box art on the bottom left, as well as the Chopper minifigure on the bottom right, this Chopper is based off of Ahsoka, not Rebels. Either way though, I have very high expectations for this set for the sole reason that the R2-D2 that released last year is pretty much perfect. Because that set is so good and widely regarded to be one of the best sets of 2024, I have very high hopes for this Chopper. Anyways though, on the back of the box, you're going to find another render of this set along with its display plaque, and then some pictures up at the top right showcasing its play features. And then opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find 7 numbered bags, as well as your instruction manual and a sticker sheet with 12 stickers on it. Now taking a look at the one and only minifigure in this set, of course being Chopper himself, and if you're wondering, yes, this is the same Chopper minifigure that's in the 2023 Ghost, and it looks really good. I prefer this Chopper over the Rebels Chopper. I think the white looks better with the orange. I mean, it's overall just a solid and unique astromech. I really don't think LEGO could do any better on it. And of course, you're going to be able to sit him on the display plaque that has a lot of information on it that you can pause and read if you want to. Now here is the actual build itself, and let me tell you, this thing is pretty incredible. I mean, I'm personally going to go so far to say that the actual build itself is perfect. However, unfortunately, it is pretty small for $100, especially when you compare it to the R2-D2 that I just briefly mentioned that also has a retail price of $100. As you can tell, R2-D2 is quite a bit larger. Now they are to scale, so Chopper is the accurate size compared to R2-D2, which is great. I love that LEGO's doing that. The scaling is awesome because it makes them really nice for display. However, since Chopper is clearly a bit smaller and this R2-D2 is still on shelves for the same retail price, it just kind of makes you wonder that, you know, maybe this Chopper could have been about $10 or $15 cheaper, which I honestly think is kind of disappointing. I mean, like I said, I think the build itself is gorgeous. It's pretty much perfect, but the price is kind of hindering it. But retail price aside, actually diving into the play features of this model, on the top, you're going to notice these 2 arms that you can move and pose however you want to. There's multiple joints that they bend on, and you can kind of twist them and turn them and pose them however. And then of course, if you don't want them there, they can very easily pop off. The head itself is also designed very well with the 3 eyes as well as a little sticker on the front. And of course, you can spin it all the way around. It's got great shaping and detail all over. He's also got his little antenna or radar dish on the top that you can move back and forth. And then the main play feature with the head is that it could actually wobble side to side. And there's this little lever on the back here that you can move up and down to, you know, wobble the head back and forth. And I think this is awesome because we see Chopper do this a lot in Rebels where he kind of bobbles his head back and forth. And it's kind of ingenious that they were able to include this as a feature. Anyways though, as you might have noticed earlier, there is some very minimal detailing on the back, along with some detail on the back of his legs as well as the back of his feet with like some wires going in and out and stuff like that. And then the sides of his legs and feet look good too. However, as you can see on the sides of his feet, there are these 2 stickers here that are very atrociously off color. I mean, on each foot, it's pretty clear that the gray of the stickers is not the same shade of gray as the gray on the pieces. So because of that, I think it's pretty obvious that these should have been unprinted. Now as for posing his legs goes, I mean, they got this down pretty much perfectly. As you can see, you can move him all the way forward and he rests on his, middle leg with his wheel. And again, this looks perfect. This is exactly how he looks in Rebels. They nailed it here. Or if you want to, you can very easily pop off this leg in the middle and then stand his leg straight up and sit him like this. The front chest area is where you're going to find the most amount of detail. As you can see, there's a lot going on here, like wires and stickers, and it all looks really good and works well together. And unlike the gray stickers on the side of his feet, these white stickers on his chest actually come pretty close to matching the shade of white on the bricks. Now it's not perfect, but it's definitely not as bad as the ones on the side of his feet. And of course, as you'd expect, there's a few movable parts in this area, like his main arm that can fold out from the front, as well as this piece down here at the bottom that can fold downwards. Now, like I've said over and over again, this set is near perfect. The only real complaint I have about the build itself are just those stickers on the side of his feet, because I think they should be printed. The rest, however, looks really, really good. I mean, LEGO blew it out of the water with this build. And honestly, I'm gonna go so far to say this is the best buildable droid LEGO has made so far. However, again, I don't like those stickers on the side of the feet, and like I mentioned earlier, it is overpriced. I mean, I really wish this set was $90 and not $100, and as bad as I want to give this set a 10 out of 10, I obviously just can't do that. So because of that, I'm feeling a solid 9.3 out of 10. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more videos, you see on the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75400 Plo Koon's Jedi Starfighter Microfighter. This set just released on June 1st with 89 pieces and a retail price of $15 US, which is $2 more than the typical Microfighter price. However, I'll talk about that more here in a little bit. Anyways though, if you couldn't tell already, this set obviously includes Plo Koon, and this is very exciting because it's the first time LEGO has made Plo Koon in 11 years. The last time we saw LEGO release this character was all the way back in 2014, and not only are we finally getting him again, it's also a brand new figure with a brand new updated head mold. On the back of the box, you're going to find another render of the set along with a play feature up at the top right corner, and then opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find 2 numbered bags. However, one of the bags in my set somehow got stuck on the inside of the box, and I tried to just forcefully pull it out, but it just ripped the bag in half and all the pieces went flying everywhere. You can kind of see it down there in the bottom of the box, so yeah, that's fun I guess. But regardless, this set does include 2 numbered bags as well as an instruction manual obviously. Taking a look at the Plo Koon figure itself, it looks incredible. I honestly could not be more happy with it. After 11 years of waiting, I think this new upgrade is perfect. I've seen some people arguing that it could have some arm printing, but personally, I don't really care that much. I think it looks great. And here it is compared to the last one we got back in 2014. And as you can tell, the main difference is that headpiece. The shaping on it is overall just much more accurate and looks way better in my opinion. And on top of that, as many of you guys know, the old one is actually a rubber piece, so it's a bit softer and it wears over time a lot easier. But this new mold is completely solid plastic, so it's way more durable and you won't have any problems with it wearing. So again, I'm really happy with this figure. I think after 11 years, LEGO just blew it out of the water. Although something I'm not happy with is that we don't get all of R7D4. We only get its head. And this is where I want to go back to the price of this set and it being $2 more than the normal Microfighter price. It seems like the only argument for this set being $2 more is that it includes the droid head and a new Plo Koon minifigure. And to be honest, I and many other people do not think those two things are a valid reason to raise this set by $2. This set should either be the normal price point of $13, or for its actual price of $15, it should include all of R7D4, not just his head. So yeah, that's honestly really annoying. On the right side though, the build is absolutely beautiful. I mean, I really like the look of this thing. I think it actually might be a contender for the best Microfighter of all time. You're obviously going to have the beautiful blue and white colorway of Plo Koon's Jedi Starfighter here with the nice white stripes going down the side. And as you can see, there's also some stud shooters up here on the top that you can fire as you want to. And to some people, these stud shooters might look a bit unappealing and make the build look a bit bulky. And I could definitely get behind that, although you can just very easily pop them off, and then from there you have a perfect little sleek looking Delta 7 Microfighter. It looks amazing. From there you can grab just the head of R7 and put it there right on the front, and then obviously grab Plo Koon and sit him in the pilot seat. And if you're wondering, this is what the bottom of the build looks like. Not much going on, however there is a little clip down here where you can put Plo Koon's lightsaber, and then towards the back you're going to have the fin that sticks out of the Delta 7 and then some nice little engines. And again, I really like how this thing looks. I think just the Delta 7 ship in general works perfect as a Microfighter, and Plo Koon's was the perfect choice because we haven't gotten him in 11 years, and also he just has a very unique looking ship. And while it sadly isn't the full play scale version of Plo Koon's Starfighter that we were hoping for to, obviously pair with the new ARC-170, it still looks really, really good. And again, I think it's a contender for the best Microfighter of all time. And because of that, I really, really, really want to give this set a 10 out of 10 rating. However, like I mentioned earlier, this set should either be $2 cheaper at the normal Microfighter price, or for the price we're paying of $15, it should simply literally include all of R7, R4. So because of that, I had to sadly take off 1 point, and it's such a shame because it's so close to being perfect. This almost had a 10 out of 10 rating, but LEGO of course just had to mess it up in some little way. But anyways though, since this actual build itself is so good, I really hope we see the other Jedi Starfighters, Anakin's, Ahsoka's, Obi-Wan's, among others, would all work very, very well. And honestly, they'd probably sell like hotcakes and be very fun sets for the community. But with that being said, let me know what you think about this set down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing. And if you want to check out more videos, you see on the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at what might be the most overpriced LEGO Star Wars set of all time, that of course being 75413 Republic Juggernaut. This set will be releasing on August 1st with only 813 pieces and a retail price of $160. If you thought the MTT was overpriced, get a load of this guy. Not only is it extremely overpriced, but it's also one of the most controversial sets of recent years as well. One of the reasons being that we finally have Commander Bakara and Galactic Marines now, some minifigures that we have been asking for over a decade at this point. However, they come in a turbo tank, and I don't want to spend too long talking about this, but yes, I personally do think this should have been a UT-AT, but no, it's a turbo tank, which doesn't really make much sense. And recently, LEGO actually came out in a blog post that they did an interview with them, and they basically just said the turbo tank is a popular vehicle, and we threw these minifigures in here because they have been requested for a long time. In other words, they didn't really consider the UT-AT at all. But yeah, at this point, other people have talked about this so much that I don't really care to discuss it anymore. But if you want to know my opinion, I do think it should have been a UT-AT. But that's not even the biggest controversy surrounding this set. The main thing everyone is talking about is that the build is allegedly extremely fragile. If you've watched other people's reviews, they always show it breaking apart in their hands, and this definitely sounds kind of ironic, but that's probably the one thing that I'm most excited for to check out with this set. I've seen everyone else's reviews, but I just want to see for myself how fragile this thing actually is. Anyways though, on the back of the box, you're going to find another render of the set showcasing how it can open up with what looks to be Megiddo as the background. They're clearly not on the bridge as seen in the movie, but there are some bridges in the background here, so I guess this setting is intended to be Megiddo. And then as always, up at the top right, you're gonna have some pictures showcasing the set's play features. Opening up the box and dig again, on the inside you're just gonna find 6 numbered bags. Yes, 6 numbered bags for a $160 set, along with your instruction manual and your sticker sheet inside this paper bag type case, with the sticker sheet having 7 stickers on it and the instruction manual being your very basic modern LEGO instructions, with a huge advertisement at the back of all of the August sets. Taking a look at the 5 actual minifigures that come in this set, first up here we have Commander Bakara. I just want to get him out of the way, and I'm not gonna lie, this is one of the most disappointing clone troopers LEGO has ever made, and it's mainly because of that helmet. I honestly don't know how they messed up the mold on it so bad. The fat cheeks on it look ridiculous. I mean, it looks like freaking Theodore from Alvin and the Chipmunks. I mean, as you can see there, the cheeks clearly bulge out a little bit like he's holding his breath or something, and it just completely ruins the entire look of this helmet. I mean, when you look at the actual source material, his helmet does not look like that on the sides, and almost every custom minifigure company gets his helmet right, but the official LEGO version cannot, and it just doesn't make any sense. It's like, how did they mess up the mold this bad? After literally almost 20 years of us waiting for this figure, getting this is just super underwhelming. And then on top of that, obviously he doesn't have a physical waist cape, which just doubles down on it. The chest printing looks good though, I'm happy with that. The back printing also looks fine too, and then underneath his helmet you're gonna find the typical modern clone trooper head, but man, the helmet itself and the lack of a waist cape is just so disappointing. I mean, I don't even know what else to say. I've never been one to use the term slop trooper, but this is a sloppy clone trooper. Now, the Galactic Marines on the other hand definitely do look a bit better than Bakara. They're in no way perfect, but at the very least, they're a bit more aesthetically pleasing. The main problem on these guys is just the lack of a waist cape. I think the torso prints and even the leg prints look really good too. He just needs a waist cape. The helmet is also solid too. It's definitely not as accurate as it could be. I think the front white section should come down a bit further. And also technically these guys' eyes are supposed to be dark green instead of black, which a lot of people have been pointing out recently. However, I personally have to say I don't really care about this, because in most shots of these guys you can't even tell their eyes are dark green, so I don't really care about that. But the waist cape on the other hand is a big issue. LEGO needs to just freaking fix that already. And then on the back side, one thing I need to point out is that his backpack doesn't have a printed tile, and this is honestly crazy because almost every trooper backpack that LEGO makes like this always has this tile printed, whether it be the snowtroopers or the first order snowtroopers or even the heavy Troopers in the 501st Specialist Battle Pack, they all have this tile printed. I mean, they can do it in a $20 battle pack, but on this Galactic Marine in a $160 set, they can't print this tile like they have on all the other troopers in the past. I mean, the corner cutting is just so blatantly obvious at this point. But regardless, underneath his backpack, you are going to find some more printing on his backside, and then he as well is going to have the modern clone trooper head. Again, these guys look a lot better than Bakara does, however, there are still just so many inaccuracies and blatant flaws with them. It honestly is just really disappointing. But then lastly here we have Ki-Adi-Mundi, the only figure in this set that has no flaws. This is a new Ki-Adi-Mundi. The last one we got was all the way back in 2018, and it looks really good. It's fairly simple, but I think LEGO did a great job on it. Great printing on the front and the back, and you can also get a good look at that nice headpiece. And if you're wondering, here is what the older one from 2018 looks like next to it. As you can see, they are very similar figures. They just have ever so slightly different printing. And then lastly, you're going to get 3 normal B1 battle droids. Really nothing much to see there. Overall, this minifigure lineup on paper is great. However, executed, it's very sloppy. Especially Bakara. I mean, good lord, I don't understand how they messed up his helmet mold that bad. And again, the Galactic Marines are a bit better. However, they're still missing their waist capes, and they don't have printed tiles on their backpacks. In my opinion, Ki-Adi-Mundi really is the only good figure in this set. Anyways though, now taking a look at the actual build, I'll be the one to stand up and say this. I like how it looks. I'm not saying it's perfect though. There are a lot of problems and inaccuracies with this build. However, purely from an aesthetic standpoint, not thinking about the accuracies, not thinking about the price, not thinking about the minifigures, the build itself does look pretty cool. However, again, that's purely from an aesthetic standpoint because there are a lot of problems with this thing, and I'm going to dive into all of that. But first, I want to talk about the size of this thing, and for $160, yes, it's very small. As you can see me handling it here, it's just a small model. It's definitely the smallest turbo tank LEGO has made. Now, it actually is ever so slightly larger than the MTT, which also retails for $160. The MTT is a way more detailed and way more intricate and way more heavily designed build. However, the turbo tank does take up a slightly larger footprint if you were curious about that. But at the same time, this also doesn't really matter because both of these sets are extremely overpriced. It starts to really go downhill when you compare the turbo tank to other $160 sets that are on shelves right now that came out last year and the year before. Here we have it next to the Star Destroyer that released last year that also has a retail price of $160. And as you can tell, the Star Destroyer is significantly larger. It's honestly insane that they cost the same price. Most of the size in this turbo tank is really just empty space because the wheels are so wide. And then here we have it next to the 2022 ATTE, which is also out on shelves right now, and it has a retail price of $140, $20 less than this turbo tank. And as you can tell, it is also quite a bit larger. Definitely not as big as the Star Destroyer, but there is a noticeable size difference here. And it's just crazy because this set costs $20 less. And then when you start looking at the set's price per gram, it goes downhill even further. As you guys know, I have been using price per gram recently as a metric to determine the value of these sets. It's not perfect, however, it is significantly more efficient and way better than price per piece because pieces obviously vary in size pretty drastically, and common sense says that this larger piece is slightly more expensive for LEGO to make than this smaller piece. And again, neither metric is perfect, but price per gram is a lot more consistent and a lot more efficient, so that's why I use it. And historically, for high price playsets like this turbo tank, the average price per gram comes out to about 17 cents, so I consider that to be the bare minimum. And according to the added up weight of the piece inventory on Bricklink, this set's total weight comes out to only 664 grams. So with a $160 retail price, that comes out to a price per gram of 24.1 cents, which is absolutely ridiculous. So now if we take the bare minimum average of 17 cents per gram and apply it to the weight of this set, it comes out to about $110. So that right there tells you that this set is arguably $50 more expensive than it should be. However, like I pointed out in the MTT review, 17 cents per gram is the bare minimum. Jango Fett's Slave 1 that's releasing alongside this turbo tank has a price per gram of only 15.6 cents. Take that and apply it to the weight of this set, and it comes out to about $100. And if you're wondering, here are the price per grams of the two sets I compared it to earlier, that being the Star Destroyer and the ATTE, as well as the price per gram of the 2023 Ghost. All three of these sets being significantly better deals. So there you have it. Based on that alone, this set is really about $50 more expensive than it should be, which is just so ridiculous on LEGO's part. It's honestly laughable. And honestly, I'm kind of starting to think that since this set is so overpriced, the original pitch for the design might have been for it to retail for around $120. Let's say LEGO was like, hey, we need a $120 turbo tank, design a turbo tank within those parameters, and that's what the designers did, and they made made this set right here, but then after the design process was finalized, LEGO actually might have been like, hey, maybe we can milk some more money out of the fans because it has Galactic Marines, and then that's why it's now 160. I know when you consider the actual design process of these sets, that theory sounds very far-fetched because usually LEGO sets the prices before they design their models. However, again, since the set is so overpriced, that theory starts to make sense. In my personal opinion, I wouldn't recommend paying more than 120 for this set, and even that is pushing it a little. But now that you know that this set is $50 overpriced, let's actually take a deep dive into the model itself and see what it has to offer. Again, like I pointed out earlier, I really like how it looks. I mean, I'm not joking about that. I think aesthetically, it looks really good. However, it's not perfect, which I'll get to, but starting off with the wheels, they work pretty much perfectly. They roll very easily. They're super seamless. And when you lean the turbo tank side to side, you can kind of steer the thing, as you can see here, which is an awesome feature. I mean, it's super satisfying when you lean it side to side and the wheels just move on their own. And here's what that wheel mechanism looks like from the bottom if you wanted to see that. Now, in my opinion, the actual wheels themselves do look good as well. Despite them most likely being brick built just to raise the piece count of this set, I think they look good at the very least. And yes, I think even the sand blue looks good too. And it's also actually fairly accurate. If you look at pictures of an actual turbo tank, you can see that in the wheels there are some lighter bluish gray colors. And I'm not gonna lie, I actually have to give props to LEGO here for actually trying to recreate that look. It's not what we're used to, however, I definitely think it's an attempt of accuracy towards the actual source material, and I like how it kind of mixes up the colors a little bit. And then right above the wheels, you're gonna find these pieces angled downwards that are kind of supposed to represent the suspension of the turbo tank. They obviously don't do anything, but they give this area a cool look, which I appreciate. But now moving on to the front of the build, this is where the accuracy starts to go downhill. Specifically with these sand blue circular pieces, they're just not supposed to be sand blue on the actual turbo tank. They're clearly a dark gray color, and I just don't understand how LEGO messed this up. I guess they were trying to match it with the sand blue of the wheels. However, that's not what they needed to do, because while the wheels do have sand blue colors in them, these round pieces on the source material do not, so there's really no reason why they should be this color. Moving on down though, you're going to see the blue transparent window pieces. I've also seen people pointing out how this isn't accurate. However, unlike that circular piece on top, in some pictures these windows actually do appear to be a bluish color, and in other pictures they appear to be a grayish color, which is what we're used to. So I think in this case the color could actually go both ways, and on top of that I actually kind of like the blue look of the windows on here. Oh, and also there's a big sticker on the front right there if you didn't notice that already. From there, this whole entire front section can very easily open up to access a pretty small and basic interior. There's not a whole lot in there, just a chair and a sticker control panel, and I guess you can take one of your Galactic Marines and sit him in here. However, what's ironic is that you have to take his backpack off in order to sit him in this seat. And the reason this is ironic is because one of LEGO's reasons for not giving us physical wastegapes anymore is that they get in the way of sitting figures down. But I guess for some reason right here, this backpack getting in the way doesn't matter. Right behind this front section, you're going to find the Scout Tower, which is just blatantly inaccurate. It's supposed to be a bucket shape like on all the old turbo tanks, but that's not what they did here. And it's just like, I don't understand how they can mess up something so simple like this. And the same thing goes for those round blue pieces on the front. I mean, literally just look at the source material for what you're designing. But no, I guess LEGO can't do that for some reason. Regardless though, you can take one of your Galactic Marines and sit him up here on top of the Scout Tower, and it can move up and down. However, there's nothing that stops it, so if you're not careful, you can just pull it all the way out. However, I actually kind of like this because since the Scout Tower is inaccurate, you can just take it out and display the turbo tank without it. The sides here are very tiled off and have a nice clean look that I appreciate. However, one thing I don't appreciate is the placement of these stud shooters that are supposed to represent the rockets on the side of the turbo tank. If you just look at any picture of the source material, it shows that they're at the top. It's actually kind of crazy. They're placed right at the bottom in the same spot that they should be placed at the top. And I guess you can just take these off if you don't like this. However, that still doesn't excuse LEGO's laziness here. Like the other inaccuracies I've already pointed out, this should have been a super easy fix. I don't know how they messed this up. On the top, there's not much to see, just this tiny little cannon that can rotate around. And then from there, this whole entire front section can very easily open up, and the top pops off too. However, one thing that is super annoying about this is that it's not connected by any studs. It just simply lays on there. And after handling this set quite a bit, I have found this super annoying because it either just falls off very easily, or sometimes when you're putting it back on, it can actually fall inside like this. And it's just really annoying. I mean, I don't understand why this couldn't have just been attached normally with some studs. But then taking a look at the actual interior, there's really not much to see. There's just 4 seats where you can sit your clone troopers, and then this little trench looking area in the middle where you can stand one up. I mean, I think it looks fine. However, compared to previous turbo tanks, it is super lackluster. And then right behind that, there's a little bit more room where you could stand a figure up, I guess. And this can also be accessed by flipping up this top panel right here. But again, it's not much, especially compared to the previous turbo tanks LEGO has made. But then from there, moving on to the backside, it looks alright, I guess. There's just some minimal minimal detail here and there. The sides, however, can not open up. As you can see here, they move a little bit, but that's mainly just to accomplish the shaping of the turbo tank. They can't open up like they do in the front half, which is actually really lame because there's a lot of empty space in here that could have been used for the interior, but no, you can't access it. On the back right here, you're going to find a little stud shooter cannon where you can grab one of your Galactic Marines and sit him back here. And I'm not going to lie, he actually does look pretty cool behind this cannon. However, when you don't have a figure in there, there's literally just an open hole into the inside of the turbo tank, which just doesn't make any sense. I don't understand why this couldn't have been covered up. From there, the very back side looks fine. There's just some more blue transparent pieces as well as a sticker, and then two very short cannons down here at the bottom. Now, the only way to access this interior back here is just by lifting up this top panel. Like I said, the sides can't fold down and the front can't fold down either, so the access is very limited. However, on the inside, it's very similar to the front. It's just a cockpit with a sticker control panel, really nothing much. And you can grab one of your Galactic Marines, make sure to take off his backpack, and then you can sit him in there, and then obviously close the hatch back up. And that is really all this turbo tank has to offer. However, obviously, there's still one thing we gotta take a look at, and that is if this set is actually fragile. And I'm gonna be 100% honest here, besides this top panel that falls off because it's not connected by any studs, this set did not fall apart in my hands one time. As you can see here, when you pick up the set normally by the back end, which is where the fragile part is, nothing happens. I mean, here you can see I'm even suspending the weight in the fragile area and it's not falling apart. However, the moment you do add a little bit of force, that's when it does start to kind of crumble apart. And this whole back section just breaks off, as you can see here. Again, it doesn't happen when you pick up the set normally. As you can see here, I'm pretty aggressively yanking it up and it's not falling apart. But yeah, the moment you start shaking it a little, that's when it starts to all go downhill and it just crumbles apart in your hands. And despite it not falling apart when you handle it normally, the fact that it does fall apart when you just ever so slightly shake it a little bit is definitely a design flaw. I know most of you guys would not handle the set like this, however, it shouldn't break apart this easily. And the reason it breaks apart is because, as you can see here on the back side, there aren't any Technic pins holding it down. I feel like everyone is kind of just telling you it breaks apart and not actually showing you why it breaks apart. And that's because this back side is held down by only these two columns right here and this plate that goes across. The front columns are held down by two Technic beams, as you can see here, but the back columns are not. And that is what leads to this back section breaking off when you handle it aggressively. I've seen a lot of people speculating recently that LEGO might actually fix this. And to be honest, I don't really know if they're going to do that or not. There have been cases in the past where there have been issues with sets and LEGO has fixed them. The most recent one off the top of my head is the stand on the UCS X-Wing. If any of you guys remember, there was a problem where when you sat the model on the stand, a few pieces on the stand would actually snap off. And then pretty soon after the set's release, they actually fixed that. And I'm pretty sure there were some other cases too, like an issue with the 2002 Jango Fett Slave 1. So again, like I said, LEGO has fixed stuff like this in the past, but with this set, I honestly don't know if they're going to do it or not. I'm just going to have to wait and see. But anyways though, that is the new clone turbo tank, one of the most controversial sets ever released. And yeah, for good reason. There are a lot of problems with this thing, and then the cherry on top is that it's literally $50 overpriced. From the inaccuracies of the build, to the fragility of it, to the sloppy minifigures, there's just a lot of issues. Like I said, from purely an aesthetic standpoint on the outside, not considering the price, not considering the minifigures, not considering the inaccuracies, the set actually does look pretty cool. It is a decent display piece. And also Ki-Adi-Mundi looks good too, but those two things are just not enough to save this set considering all the other things that are wrong with it. The main thing really being the price point. I mean, it is disgustingly overpriced. So because of that, I'm feeling a 4 out of 10 for this set. If you have $160 to spend on a set, please do not get this. Either get the Star Destroyer or the Ghost from 2023. You will be much happier with your purchase with one of those sets and not this one. So let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more videos, you can see on the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75431 327th Star Corps Clone Troopers Battle Pack. This set just released on August 1st with 258 pieces and a retail price of $45 US. And I don't want to beat the dead horse anymore in the beginning of the video here. I'll dive more into the price later on in the video, but yes, it's overpriced. I'm pretty sure everybody knows that. It's honestly insane that this set cost 50% more than the battle pack that released last year that is the same size. And I'm not going to lie, seeing these two sets on shelves next to each other in the stores is just insane. insane. I'm sure you've seen pictures on Instagram and Reddit of this. You have two sets that are the same size, with one being $45 and one being $30. And they're always right next to each other in stores, and it looks so bizarre. And also, not to mention that one 3-in-1 set that just came out that has the other battle pack along with two other sets and also costs $45, the same as this battle pack. So again, yeah, the price is bad. However, like I said, I'll dive more into the pricing of battle packs later on in this video. But anyways, as you can see here, this set is based off of Felucia with the 327th Clone Troopers, some Clone Troopers that LEGO has not made in years. The last time they made one of these guys was all the way back in 2013. And as you can see, you also get two builds, which are surprisingly really good. And we'll take a look at all of that. On the back of the box, you're going to find just another render of this set. And then opening the box up and digging in on the inside, you're going to find just 3 numbered bags, along with 2 instruction manuals, one for your ATRT and one for your Spider Droid, and a small sticker sheet with 5 stickers on it. Moving on to the long-awaited 327th Clone Troopers here. Yeah, I mean, they're modern Clone Troopers, alright. The printing on the helmet looks good, the printing on the torso looks good, the printing on the back looks good. However, like I said, they're modern Phase 2 Clone Troopers, so obviously they're not going to have a physical waistcape, and they're going to have exposed helmet holes. And both these issues are annoying. However, I honestly think the waistcape is the more annoying issue out of the two, because it's just such an easy fix, and LEGO's reasoning for not making physical waistcapes is just so ridiculous. They claim that you can't set the figure down when it has a physical waistcape on, which first of all, it's just not true. You can. And second of all, if it's that big of a deal, you can just take the waistcape off. In the turbo tank that just released, the Galactic Marines have backpacks that get in the way of them sitting down in their seats, so you have to take their backpacks off. And it seems like if LEGO was consistent, they would have just printed those backpacks, wouldn't they? But no, they gave those Galactic Marines physical backpacks, so this trooper needs a physical waistcape. And then also you have the helmet holes, and I mean, I know people hate when I talk about this, but I just voice my own opinion, and I don't think they look good. The new rangefinder piece looks great. However, in the copy I got, at least, there's only 3 rangefinders, and there's obviously 4 clone troopers, so that just leaves one with no helmet accessories, which is the whole reason for these helmet holes in the first place. And again, I know most people hate when I talk about this, but I just don't think they look good. The thing I care about most with these clone troopers is aesthetic appeal, and the 2 things that affect the aesthetic appeal the most are the lack of a waistcape and the exposed helmet holes. And whether you like it or not, the exposed helmet holes just make the clone trooper look not as good as the old ones that we got. As you can see here, the shaping on the helmet on the right is just objectively better. Whether you like it or not, that's just how it is. So because of that, I just think LEGO needs to redesign the Phase 2 helmet. They need to make it to where it has proper shaping and helmet holes, and not where the helmet holes ruin the entire look. And in the meantime, until they do that, they need to include accessories for all the clone troopers that come in these sets. Every single Phase 2 clone trooper set needs to have an accessory bag that has macro binoculars, rangefinders, and the visors. The fact that they don't include a variety of accessories in these sets is just super annoying. On the bright side though, the trooper does have a new pauldron piece, which I went more in depth on with Commander Bly in my MTT review, but in short, I'm happy with it. I think it looks really good. From some angles, specifically the sides and back angles, it does look really wide. However, that's so the arm can move back and forth. So again, overall, I think these look good. LEGO did a great job with these. However, the lack of a waistcape and the helmet holes do not look good. Redesign the helmet and give these troopers physical waistcapes. And in the meantime, again, include enough accessories for all these troopers. It's just ridiculous that these sets don't come with accessories. And then on top of that, you're just gonna have 3 super battle droids. These are the new ones that they introduced last year, and I like these guys. I think LEGO did a good job on the redesign here. On paper, for a super battle pack, excluding the price, this minifigure lineup is solid. However, again, the clone troopers have their problems, and then, oh man, is this not enough for $45 at all. For the price they're charging for this set, I mean, it should have, gosh, at least 6 clone troopers, I think, along with an extra super battle droid and some regular battle droids as well. What we have here is just not anywhere close to being worth $45. Now, the builds, on the other hand, like I said at the beginning, look really good. Yes, this set is disgustingly overpriced and the clone troopers have numerous problems, but man, these 2 builds right here are incredible. I guess first we'll start off with this new dwarf spider droid design, and oh my gosh, LEGO blew this out of the water. The head, as you can see here, is completely redesigned, and it just looks incredible. It is extremely accurate to the source material, and then obviously on the front, you're gonna have its cannon that can move up and down, and then its legs that allow for posability. But man, again, this is easily the best dwarf spider droid LEGO has ever made by a long shot. It's honestly such a shame that this comes in such a trashy, expensive set, because it looks very good, and that becomes even more evident when you compare it to the old design here. I mean, as you can see, they just drastically improved the head so much. It looks incredible. Now, one thing I do gotta point out though is that on the legs, there's actually an extra joint on this new model, totaling for 4 joints, while the old models only have 3 joints. And because of that, posing the legs is actually super tedious and can be kind of annoying sometimes. But because the actual build looks so good and so accurate, that's easy to look past. And then moving on to the ATRT, like the dwarf spider droid, it also looks great. I think this is a contender for the best oversized ATRT LEGO has ever designed. However, there's one thing I really don't like about it, and that is the stud shooter on the front as the main cannon. I'm not gonna lie, it just looks freaking diabolical right here, and when you try to move it up and down, the front often breaks off, as you can see here. But again, it just looks freaking ugly, and this is actually kind of annoying because LEGO has integrated stud shooters into ATRTs in the past and actually did a good job at it. So because of that, I honestly just like to take the stud shooter off. I think it looks a lot better. So besides the stud shooter, the actual main body and the legs looks good. Again, I think it's a contender for the best ATRT LEGO has made. And as some of you guys might know, I actually really like the oversized LEGO ATRTs because LEGO is able to pack a lot of detail into them, and this is a great example of that. This set is extremely detailed. On the front here, you're going to see very impressive shaping for such a small area. However, there are stickers on here, and I did an awful job of putting these on, specifically these ones in the front here. I did not line them up at all, so that's kind of annoying, but at least the actual design of this area looks good. And then from there, moving on to the seat, it also looks good. Again, a very small area, but there's lots of detail packed into here. And then obviously you're going to have the antennas on the back, and then a little printed control panel. The legs can also move as you'd expect them to. However, I wish they could go forward a little bit more, because when you sit the thing down, it doesn't really have that slouch sort of leaning forward look that these ATRTs are supposed to have, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. And then from there, you can have the feet, and they also are designed very well. And as you'd expect, you can grab one of your clone troopers and sit him in the driver's seat, and then there is a clip on the back to hold his blaster. And again, besides the diabolical stud shooter on the front, this ATRT just looks beautiful. And honestly, I think this build has a lot of potential for really good color swapping. You could make an awesome 501st ATRT, an awesome 212th ATRT, or maybe even something like a 187th ATRT for the purple clone troopers. I think that would look really good, and honestly, I actually think I might do that. And then last and least for the build, you're gonna have this tiny little stud shooter cannon, which is really nothing to see. And that right there is really all there is to this $45 battle pack. And now I actually want to dive into the pricing problem with this set. A lot of people don't realize this, but battle packs are kind of the area where LEGO gets away with overpricing the most. If you take the 2009 Clone Walker battle pack, which was $10 on release and adjusted for inflation, it comes out to $15 in today's money, which, as we all know, battle packs got raised to $20 back in 2022, and now today LEGO is using tariffs as an excuse to raise them to $23. And the obvious argument for this is, oh well, today battle packs have more intricate builds and the figures have more printing and detail on them, so yeah, this might add $2 to the price, raising the price from $15 to $17. These highly detailed figures that LEGO makes are not as expensive as most people think they are. So based on that, normal battle packs should not be any more than $17. And then you have these super battle packs like the 501st one from 2020, the one from last year, and then this one. And LEGO is charging small playset prices for these sets. I mean, this new battle pack is $5 more than Jedi Bob Starfighter that released last year. So since LEGO is gonna charge playset prices for these battle packs, I have to use the price per gram metric on them. And historically, for small playsets in the price range of $20 to $45, the average price per gram has come out to about 20 cents adjusted for inflation. However, these super battle packs have absurd price per grams. Like the 501st battle pack, its price per gram adjusted for inflation is 25.7 cents. The one that released last year has a price per gram of 26.7 cents. And this new one has a price per gram of 44.1 cents. It's just honestly insane. Like I said, this is where LEGO gets away with overpricing the most. These battle packs, including the 501st one from 2020, should not be more than $25. And honestly, even $25 is pushing it. I honestly don't think they should be more than $23, which is super ironic considering the fact that the one that released last year is constantly on sale on Amazon for $23.99. And then there's always the people that say, oh, well, in these sets, you're not paying for the builds, you're paying for the number of minifigures, that's why they're more expensive. And okay, well, if you think that, let's take a look at the Rebel Scout Speeder and the Imperial Dropship set that was released last year. That set has 7 real minifigures, that being 3 Stormtroopers, 3 Rebels, and the 25th anniversary figure. So 7 real minifigures, not 4 clone troopers and a few droids, 7 actual figures, and it retailed for $40 with a weight of 273.4 grams, coming out to a price per gram of 15 cents. So that right there shows you that LEGO has been scamming the crap out of us with these super battle packs. So in my opinion, if they're going to continue to release super battle packs at a price point of $30+, they need to have more minifigures. I'm talking 6 to 8 clone troopers along with the battle droids, and the builds need to be more intricate, not just bare bones side builds. And this is actually kind of what that Imperial and Rebel battle pack from last year did right. It includes 7 real minifigures and pretty intricate builds. Now mind you, the builds aren't the greatest looking, especially that dropship. It is pretty ugly, but at the very least, it's compact, it has a lot of pieces, and it actually feels high quality. It's not just a bare bones side build. And that's what leads to a price per gram of 15 cents, actually making this set a good value, unlike these other ones. So in a perfect world, $17 for normal battle packs, and no more than $25 for these super battle packs. But at the end of the day, we are talking about LEGO here, so these prices are never going to go down. But at the very least, I'm just trying to put it in perspective for you guys. So $30 is already too much, but since this set is $45, it's obviously just insane. And because of that, I cannot give it a good rating. And it's really kind of a shame because I like the Spider Droid, I like the AT-RT, but it's just stupidly overpriced. Literally about $20 more than it should be. So because of that, I'm feeling a 3.5 out of 10 for this one. Like the title says, I really do think this is going to be the last Super Battle Pack, or at least the last Super Battle Pack for a long time, because it's just not going to sell at all. I mean, in the stores, it's literally placed right next to the one from last year, and the one from last year is $15 cheaper. And nobody in their right mind, especially parents buying sets for their kids, are gonna pick this 327th one over the one from last year where they see the price points. So because of that, this set is just not gonna sell, and I think it's gonna be the last Super Battle Pack for a long time. Anyways though, let me know what you guys think about this set down in the comments below. If you do, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more videos, you can see on the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75432 V19 Torrent Starfighter. This set just released on August 1st with 567 pieces and a retail price of only $65, which is actually a really fair price point, especially compared to the other sets that released this wave. Now, I'm actually really excited to take a look at this thing because the original V19 Torrent is one of my favorite sets of all time, and I think taking a look at a modern version of the ship is going to be really fun. However, by no means is this a perfect set. From a few issues with the build to the minifigures, we're going to take a look at all of it. On the back of the box, you're going to find another render of the set, and as you can see, it doesn't really look the greatest in its landing position. And then per usual, you're going to have some pictures up at the top right corner that show off the set's play features. Now, opening up the box and digging in, on the inside, you're just going to find 5 separate numbered bags, along with your instructions and a small sticker sheet with only 6 stickers on it. Moving on to the minifigures here, first off, we'll start with this new clone pilot, and I'm going to be honest, I'm kind of all over the place on this figure. I have mixed feelings about it. I think this new helmet mold does look really good. I mean, obviously, they finally got it accurate. It has accurate shaping. There's not a fin on the back. However, one thing that kind of threw me off about it is that it is really, really large, like bigger than I was expecting it to be. It does make it look a tad bit goofy, I'm not gonna lie. And this is pretty evident when you compare it to just the normal modern Phase 1 clone trooper. As you can see here, that helmet is a bit smaller and a bit slimmer. It's not the end of the world, and after all, I'm pretty sure it's accurate. I think the pilot's helmets are bigger anyway. I just thought it was something worth pointing out. But the main thing people are talking about with this helmet is obviously the printing on the front. And it definitely doesn't look bad. I wouldn't say it's as big of an issue as like the helmet holes or the printed waist capes. However, it doesn't look as good as it could, and this is obviously very evident when you look at how it's shown on the box. As you can see, the printing is noticeably different, with the black lines on the visor going all the way to the sides of the helmet, and then in the real version, they don't do that. And again, this doesn't look bad. It doesn't ruin the aesthetic of the figure. However, it's just not as good as it could look, and the best it could look is what's shown on the box and in the product images. And also on top of that, it is just really frustrating that we don't get what's shown on the box and in the product images. And I mean, I've seen people complaining about the actual helmet print looking bad, and I don't even think that's that big of an issue. I think the big issue is just the fact that it doesn't look the same as it does on the box, or vice versa. That's just really dumb on LEGO's part. Make the box print look the same as the real figure, or make the real figure look the same as the box print, whatever. But still, again, at the end of the day, the figure doesn't look terrible. It just doesn't look as good as it could, and the best it could look is what's shown on the box. And then obviously underneath the helmet, you're going to have the modern clone trooper head print. But moving on to a figure that actually doesn't have any issues, that being this new Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it looks incredible. There's literally nothing wrong with this figure. It's got great printing on the front and the back, and then it's obviously got great arm printing on both sides. I mean, this is easily the best Obi-Wan Kenobi figure LEGO has ever made. It's not even close. And then as you can see here, he's also going to have a double-sided face. And then next up here, we have another perfect looking figure, that being Asajj Ventress, the first one we've gotten since 2015. And just like Kenobi, this figure is flawless. I love the bright, vibrant purple, and I think it also goes really good with the white. She's also got a cool face print, and then as you can see on the back of her head, she's got a pretty gnarly head print on the back here too. And then of course, she's also going to come with the curved lightsaber hilts, the first time LEGO has made these in quite a few years as well. Overall, this minifigure lineup is really good. I mean, it's just a perfect little lineup of characters from the Clone Wars movie, and I think it works great for the V19 Torrent, with Asajj Ventress and Kenobi really being some of, if not the best figures that have come out in 2025 so far. It's just that pilot, man. The helmet print, again, doesn't doesn't look bad, but it should look how it looks on the box because the box is the better version in my opinion. Taking a look at the actual model here, the first thing I have to say is I really do not like how this thing looks in its landed position. However, I'll talk about that more here in a minute. First off, I want to talk about the price point of this thing because it's actually a good deal. There is another $65 set that is currently on shelves right now, and that is the TIE Bomber from 2023. And as you can see here, the TIE Bomber is ever so slightly larger, which is mainly due to its wings, but overall they are relatively the same size. They both look like they would cost the same price. And then when talking about this set's price per gram, usually sets of this price point and this size have a price per gram of about 17 cents on average, so I really consider that to be the standard. And according to the added up weight of the piece inventory of this set on Bricklink, it has a total weight of 424 grams with a $65 price point coming out to a price per gram of just 15.3 cents, which is a really solid deal, and it actually makes it the set with the lowest price per gram out of the entire LEGO Star Wars 2025 August wave, with the Playscale Jango Fett Slave 1 following right behind it. So yeah, $65 is a really good deal for this set, especially compared to the Turbo Tank and the MTT. But now I actually want to dive into the model and talk about everything that it offers. I do have to say one thing I really appreciate about it is that it is super clean looking. As you can see around this cockpit area, it is just perfectly tiled off, very clean, very sleek. And then the cockpit itself is going to be a yellow transparent piece, which is definitely different looking from the clear transparent piece on the old V19 Torrent. However, if you look in universe, a yellow cockpit is actually accurate. And then opening up the cockpit on the inside, there's really not much, just a seat and a small sticker control panel, which actually does look pretty cool. And then obviously, as you'd expect, you can grab the clone pilot and sit him down in the seat. Now, despite this area around the cockpit looking really sleek, I do have to say I do not like these stickers on the front. I mean, when you put them on correctly, it doesn't look bad. It's just the fact that you have to line them up perfectly, and if you don't, it really could potentially ruin the look of the front of the set here. If these stickers were on the wings or something or on the back, I don't think it'd matter that much, but since they're on the very front where you can easily risk ruining the entire look of the model, I think these should have been printed. Now again, this set is sleek and tiled off, which I appreciate. However, like I briefly mentioned earlier, I do not like how this set looks in its landed position, and there's two main reasons for that. The first is that there's literally no landing gear, so it sits completely flat on the ground, and I just do not like how this looks. I think it gives it such an incomplete feel, and you can really see how the lack of landing gear hinders the look of the set when you compare it to the older one, which is obviously much larger, but I'm talking about the landing gear here. As you can see, the slight elevation for the landing gear just does a lot for the older one, and the lack of it on this new one just doesn't look very appealing in my opinion. And then the second thing I really don't like about it is how far the back wing sticks out when it's folded up. I just really don't like the shaping of it like this, and this is again something that the older one is better at. The back wing doesn't stick out so far, and it definitely looks more appealing when it's folded up compared to this newer one where it's completely flat on the ground and the back wing sticks out. And honestly, I think that back wing sticking out so far is probably the reason there isn't any landing gear, because it would tip backwards. However, the narrative completely changes when you actually fold the wings down into its flying position. As you can see, you just grab the wings and fold them down. There's no insane mechanism like there is on the old one, and it looks really good like this. I mean, it is pretty much spot on accurate, which I love. And you actually can kind of display it in its flying position like this without the need for a stand. You can just lean it down on its side wing like this, and it actually looks pretty cool. It gives it kind of a dynamic flying look. However, I prefer to just throw some pieces on the bottom to get it to stand upright. And again, it looks super good. It's pretty much spot on accurate with how this ship looks in the Clone Wars. The wings are very sleek and clean looking, and as you can see, there's two stickers on this one with the stripes and the Republic logo. However, the right one only has one sticker because the Republic logo isn't there. And I'm not gonna lie, when I noticed this, I thought I just forgot to put the sticker on, but no, on the front of the box, one of the wings is just missing the Republic logo, so I guess it's how it's supposed to be. And then from there, you're gonna have the cannons at the bottom that look really good, and then you're gonna have some stud shooters on those that you can obviously fire as you want to. The third wing, when it's not folded back up in its landing position, also looks really good, and as you can see, there's a little engine intake right there in the middle, and then on the back, you're gonna have the actual thruster part of the engine, and then you're gonna see a little rod here, which is actually what holds it in place when it's in its landing position, because there's a little clip up here at the top. And while this definitely isn't as cool as the automatic function on the old one, it still works really well. And then from there, you're gonna have the two main engines, which are very simple, but they get the job done and they look decent. Overall, this is definitely one of the better August 2025 sets. It has its highs and its lows, however, I think the good outweighs the bad. When it's in its flying position, it's extremely clean and extremely accurate. I love how it looks. And then of course, you have Obi-Wan Kenobi and Asajj Ventress, two of the best figures that have come out this year. Really, the only things I have against this set are again how it looks in its landing position, and then obviously the pilot, and then a few other small things here and there like the stickers on the front. Other than that, it looks great, has a great price point, and has really cool figures. So because of that, I'm feeling a solid 7.5 out of 10 for this one. Let me know guys think about it down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more videos, you see on the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75435 Battle of Felucia Separatist MTT. This set will be releasing on August 1st with 976 pieces and a hefty price tag of $160. But I'll talk about the price more here in a minute. First off, I want to say I'm just honestly surprised that LEGO even made this set. If you would have asked me a year ago, I would have said that LEGO will never make a blue MTT. I honestly just always thought they'd only make the brown versions. I never thought we'd see a blue CIS model. I mean, last fall I even made a whole video about why this wouldn't happen, but lo and behold, in 2025 LEGO actually did it, and surprisingly it looks really good. However, this set is far from perfect, and we're going to dive into all of that throughout this video. On the back of the box you're going to find quite the scenes with some battle droids at the bottom right unloading stuff from the MTT, some droids over here that are dapping each other up, along with Commander Bly up at the top left corner capturing 2 other droids, and then like usual up at the top right you're going to have some pictures showcasing the set's play features. Opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find 8 separate numbered bags, along with your instruction manual and the sticker sheet inside this paper case, with the sticker sheet just having 4 small stickers on it, and the instruction manual being your typical modern LEGO instructions, just a very straightforward build process with a giant advertisement on the back showcasing all of the August sets. And if this looks familiar, it's because this is the picture that actually leaked a few months ago. Moving on to the minifigures, starting off with the one figure that's getting all the talk in this set, that of course being Commander Bly. After quite literally about 20 years of us asking LEGO to make this figure, they finally did it, and it's a bit underwhelming to say the least. In my personal opinion, there are 2 things that are wrong with this figure. The first being the gray printing on the cheeks on the helmet. I saw people online pointing this out and I didn't think much of it until I actually got this figure in hand, and I looked at the helmet and something did seem really off to me. So I looked up pictures of Bly in episode 3, and lo and behold, this section of his helmet is supposed to be yellow and not gray. And I was like, oh well, I guess that's why it looked really off to me. So yeah, I know it is a very small detail, but I really do think this section should be yellow. It would make the helmet look a lot better because the gray just doesn't look that great. And then the second problem is obviously the lack of a physical waist cape. I mean, in my personal opinion, the printed waist cape is just so aesthetically unappealing, especially with that new plastic shoulder pauldron, which I'll talk about here in a second. It just makes the figure look so top heavy and like a football player with giant pads on, and I just really don't like it at all. But onto that new shoulder pauldron piece, it looks really good. However, I do have to say, from some angles, specifically the side angles, it does look very wide, and this definitely could be off-putting to some people. However, the reason LEGO did this is so the arm can move back and forth. So in this case, despite it looking kind of off from this angle, I really do think they did the best they could. And then the rest of the figure, specifically the torso and the back printing, looks good too. When it comes to these clone troopers, I really care about aesthetic appeal over accuracy, and in my opinion, the only 2 things affecting the aesthetic appeal is again the lack of a waist cape and the gray on the helmet. All the other stuff people have been pointing out, like the ammo pouch on the chest or the chest being the wrong shade of yellow or whatever, I just think all of that stuff is ridiculous because it's honestly really hard to notice. Really, the only 2 bad things, in my opinion at least, are just the lack of a waist cape and the gray on the helmet. Everything else is just not very noticeable. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention, underneath the helmet you're gonna find the modern clone trooper face print. Next up here we have Ayla Secura, the first time LEGO has made this character since 2017, and it looks good. I really don't have much to say, just pretty average torso and face printing on the front and the back. Here you can get a nice look at that headpiece, and then the printing underneath the headpiece on the back side, and then she's also gonna have a double-sided face. And if you're wondering, here is the old one from 2017, and they actually are quite noticeably different, especially with the face and torso prints. The headpiece is exactly the same as you can see here, but all the prints are different. And then next up here we have the Commando droids, the first time LEGO has made Commando droids since 2013, and obviously the controversy around these figures is that they are gunmetal gray and not brown like the old ones, and lots of people have been complaining about this because brown technically is the more accurate color. However, I'm not gonna lie, I know I'm definitely in the minority on this, but I really like how they look in gray. Despite them kind of being inaccurate, these are very clean looking figures, and they have a lot more printing detail on them than the older ones do. Here is one of the older ones for comparison. You can see that the newer one actually has quite a bit of chest printing going on that the older one doesn't have, and again, I just really like how it looks. And also, when you actually look at the source material of Commando droids, a lot of times they're brown and a lot of times they can appear gray. So honestly, in my opinion, I think it could go both ways. They could could either make it a brown figure or a gray figure, and it works just fine either way. And these figures kind of prove that because, again, they just look really, really good in my opinion. And then lastly, you're going to have 6 normal B1 battle droids, really nothing much to see there, along with the battle droid pilot, which is the exact one that came in the droid carrier from 2024. That, as you can see, has a very, very poor torso print. And I know these battle droid pilots have kind of always had these poor torso prints, but I'm not gonna lie, I mean, it's 2025, LEGO just fixed this already, put 2 layers of printing on there. Again, I know they've had this problem for the past 25 years, but fixing it late is better than not fixing it at all. Overall, on paper, this minifigure lineup is really solid. However, Commander Bly is just executed very, very poorly. Again, the 2 main problems are the waist cape and the gray printing on the helmet. Those are 2 things that I just think can't be ignored. LEGO really, really, really needs to fix these. But other than that, I like all the other figures in this set. Yes, even the commando droids. I think they look great. Now moving on to the actual build itself, I have to say this thing looks really, really good. I mean, it's an absolutely gorgeous model, extremely good detail, and extremely good shaping all around. I'm not gonna lie, in terms of just the build, this unironically could be argued to be the best MTT LEGO has made. Again, in terms of just the look of the build. However, this thing is small, like really, really small. Here you can see I can very easily like pick it up with one hand and kind of palm the thing. It's literally about the size of one of those Nerf foam footballs. I know it's a weird comparison, but that's what I thought of when I picked it up. And then it gets even crazier when you compare it to other sets that are in its price range. Here we have the 2023 Ghost and Phantom 2, which also retails for $160 and is also on shelves right now. And as you can see, it is significantly larger than this MTT. And it gets even worse. Here we have it next to the Star Destroyer that released last year, which is also $160 and also on shelves right now. And as you can see, it just absolutely dwarfs this MTT. It really is nearly twice the size, and it is the same retail price, and it is also out right now. And then here we have it next to the 2022 ATTE, which is $20 less at $140, and again is also out on shelves right now, and it is quite a bit larger too. It's definitely not as big as the Star Destroyer or the Ghost, however, there is definitely a noticeable size difference here, and it's insane because this set is $20 cheaper. And then if you're curious, here's what it looks like next to the 2007 MTT. It just absolutely dwarfs it. And while this model is small, that's only a bad thing because of its retail price. Again, it looks incredible. It's a very fun and intriguing build. It just should not be $160. As many of you guys know, I have been posting these price per gram comparisons on my community tab, and that's because I personally think this is the absolute best metric to measure the value of a LEGO set. I know price per piece has been the very popular standard for a long time. However, price per piece is such an awful metric just because of how drastically pieces vary in size. But price per gram, on the other hand, measures the actual amount of plastic in each set, so it's a much better metric to determine the value. And historically, throughout the 26 years of LEGO Star Wars, large play sets like this MTT have had an average price per gram of about 17 cents. So for play sets of this size, I consider 17 cents to be the bare minimum, and according to the added up weight of the piece inventory for this set on Bricklink, its total weight of just the plastic without the box and instructions comes out to 720 grams, and with a $160 retail price, that comes out to a price per gram of 22.2 cents, which is just absolutely insane. Now, if we take the bare minimum of 17 cents per gram and apply it to the weight of this set, it comes out to about $120. So based on just that right there, this set is $40 overpriced. But again, 17 cents per gram is just the bare minimum of sets this size. If we take a look at the new Playscale Jango Fett Slave 1 that releases alongside this MTT, it has a price per gram of only 15.6 cents, which if you apply a 15.6 cent price per gram to this MTT, it comes out to $110. And again, these two sets are releasing alongside each other. So that right there tells you that this set is at the very least $40 more expensive than it should be, which is just absolutely insane. It's disgustingly overpriced. Oh, and if you're wondering, here is the price per gram of all the sets that I compared it to earlier, that being the Ghost, the Star Destroyer, and the ATTE. So based off of all that information alone that I just showed you, I wouldn't recommend spending more than $120 on this set. The only reason I paid full price is so I can make this video. But enough talk about the price, let's actually take a deep dive into the set itself and go over all of the functionalities and play features. Starting off with the stat build here, just to get it out of the way. It's a new design design, and it honestly looks very clean. I actually like this quite a bit, especially compared to the bulkier look of the older models. This new one just looks a lot cleaner and a lot sleeker, and it's very simple, but again, like I said, I think it looks really good. But now moving on to the MTT, on the front here, you're obviously going to have the printed dish piece, and for most people, this is kind of the highlight of this build. It's the only printed piece in this set, and it looks really good. However, one thing I do have to say about it is that the piece as a whole is attached very loosely. As you can see here, it wiggles around quite a bit, especially when you pick up the set and handle it a lot, and I'm not gonna lie, after a while, it does get kind of annoying. I wish this was attached on a little bit more securely. Moving on down to the bottom of the front, you're gonna find the two cannons on their ball turrets that you can obviously turn around and aim in any which direction you want to. I have seen a lot of talk about how the cannons on these ball turrets aren't long enough, and I'm gonna be honest, I actually think they look just fine. They could maybe be a little bit longer, but since the build as a whole is so small, the length of these cannons really doesn't matter. It looks just fine in my opinion. On the top here, you're gonna find these stud shooters that are implemented into the build very well. I mean, they surprisingly look really clean and really seamless up here. I think LEGO did a great job on this. And then of course, per usual, you can very easily fire them as you please. On the top here, you're gonna find a sticker of the two Vulture Droid looking eyes. That 100% should be a printed piece because as you can tell, the miscoloration of the gray on the sticker and the gray of the pieces is very noticeable. I mean, for the price you're paying for this set, there's really just no reason why this couldn't be printed. But regardless, this whole entire top section can open up very easily, giving you lots of space to the cockpit up here. And the cockpit itself is really not much to look at. It's a very simple design with one little stickered control panel up here. Well, actually, I say control panel, but it looks to be like an actual diagram of the battle, which is pretty cool. And then you can take your battle droid pilot and put him up here. You kind of have to lay him down, and then you can fold the sides up and put the top back on very easily. And the shaping as a whole on this top section is super impressive. I mean, it looks incredible. There's lots of layering, lots of details, and I also just really like the shape of the very top, how it like slightly slopes downwards. It just looks really good. LEGO did a great job. And the great detail is going to continue on down to the sides here, where you're going to find these two stickered CIS logos, which like the Vulture Droid eyes on the front, should be printed because they're clearly a different shade of gray from the gray on the pieces, and for a set that's $40 overpriced, I think these could be printed pieces. But regardless though, this front section can actually open up. There's really nothing to see here besides these giant red arches and I guess a peek inside the droid rack in there. I honestly really don't see a reason for these being able to open up like this, but hey, it's there if you want to do that. Now, speaking of the droid rack, the way you open it is this knob back here on the back, which is not centered on the back of the MTT, and I'm not gonna lie, this might be my biggest gripe about this build because it looks like a freaking trash can sitting on top of the build back here, and that on top of it not being centered is just really annoying in my opinion. But anyway, this is how you open the droid rack. You just twist it and the droid rack comes out the front. It kind of comes out and drops down as you can see here, and the bottom and top doors actually open with it. And despite this trash can looking knob on the back being super ugly, the function as a whole is actually really awesome. Here you can get a better look at how those doors open and close with the actual rack. There's a little chain piece in there connected to the bottom door that kind of pulls it shut when you twist the knob. It's really awesome. And the rack alone without any droids on it honestly doesn't look very good. So to load it up with the whopping 6 battle droids, you kind of just fold them up like this and then they attach to it with their back. Like all MTTs, it's pretty tedious, but when they're on there, it actually does look pretty good. And then again, the function for the droid rack is just so perfect. This might be the best function for any MTT LEGO has ever made. I'm not gonna lie. Although as you can see here, it does kind of slam the droids down pretty hard and they can fall off. Now, despite this great function and the rack itself looking really good, the fact that it's $160 and can only hold 6 battle droids is super underwhelming, especially when you compare it to the 2007 model that can hold 16 battle droids. Moving on to the backside here, you're gonna find even more impressive shaping and layering and detail. I'm not gonna lie, this actually might be the best looking part of the build just because of how detailed they were able to make this. And then from there, you can very easily open up this entire back section, allowing for very roomy and spacious access to this interior. It's actually pretty impressive. However, despite this being a very large and spacious interior, there's really not much going on the inside. Really, the only thing to see are these gun racks that hold the battle droids blasters. Other than that, there's really nothing else. You can, however, get a good look at how the rack function works here, which is pretty cool. And then actually, I guess if you wanted to, you can kind of shove the stap in here, and it actually does fit pretty well. I mean, you can close it all the way back up and it doesn't get in the way, and it also stays out of the way of the rack function too, so I guess that's cool. Now, you might have noticed these giant black wheels down here that honestly do look really goofy when the MTT is opened up like this. From what I know, LEGO hasn't used wheels like this on any of the previous MTTs. However, I have to say they work very well. It slides super easily on a hard surface like this. Here's a look at what the bottom looks looks like with those 4 black wheels and then 2 wheels on the front. Again, they look goofy when it's opened up, but their function works really well. And they also give the MTT a very nice sort of floating illusion to kind of make it look like it's actually hovering. But that is really all there is to see with this build. Like I said earlier, in terms of just looks alone, this legitimately could be argued to be the best looking MTT LEGO has made. I mean, if I had to rate the build alone without considering the price and without considering the minifigures, I honestly would give this a solid 8.5 out of 10. But for the set as a whole, including the sloppiness of Commander Bly, as well as the atrocious retail price of $160, I unfortunately have to give this set a 5 out of 10. Like I said earlier, I would not recommend spending more than $120 on this set. For the price they're charging of $160, it should really have more battle droids and at least 2 327th troopers, and also the build should really have about 500 more pieces. So again, do not spend more than $120 on this set. That is my personal recommendation. If you have $160 to spend on a LEGO set, please get either the Star Destroyer or the Ghost. You would 100% feel like you got your money's worth with those two sets. But with that being said, let me know what you guys think about this set down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more videos, you see on the screen right now. Well, this might be a surprise to some of you guys, but yes, I did buy it. Today, we're going to be taking a look at 75419 Death Star. This set just released on October 1st with 9,023 pieces, making it the biggest LEGO Star Wars set of all time by piece count. And as all of you guys know, it has a retail price of $1,000 US, making it the most expensive LEGO set ever made. And not only is it the most expensive set ever made, it's arguably also one of the most controversial sets ever made, because as you can clearly tell, it doesn't look like the Death Star. It's not a sphere, it's a slice, which is shown very bluntly on the left side of the box right here. I think this picture is hilarious. The right side has some really cool artwork of the actual Death Star, but the left side is like, nope, that's not what you're getting this. Because again, they went with this sort of sliced dollhouse design that literally looks like Terraria. However, its design is not the only controversial thing it has going for it. Its minifigure lineup has also got quite a lot of people riled up. It includes a whopping 40 minifigures, which as of now, 31 of them are exclusive to this set, and it has some big time figures like Galen Erso, a character that has never been made before, the first Director Krennic minifigure since 2016, and the first Imperial Yularen minifigure since 2015, and then of course everyone's favorite, the Hot Tub Stormtrooper. And while this minifigure lineup as a whole is pretty solid on paper, its execution is not so great, and we're gonna dive into all of that. On the back of the box, you're gonna find a whole display of various different pictures showcasing the inside rooms of the Death Star. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a picture of every single room back here, from the Hangar Bay to Kenobi versus Darth Vader, to the Imperial meeting room, to the Emperor's throne room, and then the dimensions in the very far bottom right corner, which read a whopping 27.5 inches tall, 31 inches wide, and 10.5 inches deep. This set is absurdly massive. And then some other things to point out on the box. On the front here at the top left corner, you're going to have the Death Star symbol, along with Ultimate Collector Series up here at the top right corner, which that in itself is actually another point of controversy for this set, because a lot of people actually want to consider this to be a Master Builder Series set and not UCS, but personally I don't really care. I mean, I think UCS works just fine. The title Ultimate Collector Series is definitely fitting for the most expensive LEGO set ever made. Opening up the box, you're immediately going to see some cool artwork showcasing a cross section of the Death Star, and then even more artwork with a quote from Grand Moff Tarkin, and then on the inside you're going to find 3 more boxes, which when lined up show a nice picture of Darth Vader. And aside from that picture on the front, these 3 boxes really have no other artwork going on. They're pretty much just blank with some lights going across them. But then once you actually open them up and pull the top part off, you're going to see some really cool artwork on the inside of these boxes. And when you put them together like this, they actually kind of tell a very simple picture story, which I think is really cool. I think these pictures look great. I do the same. I kind of wish they were on the outside of these boxes and not the inside. However, still, it's nice to see that they included this extra artwork here. On the inside of the first box here, you're going to find bags 1 through 25, along with your first 2 instruction manuals, and then a massive sticker sheet with a whopping 50 stickers on it. From what I know, this set has the most stickers out of any LEGO Star Wars set ever made, and I don't really think that's something to brag about on a LEGO Star Wars set that retails for $1,000, because there should be way more printed pieces than there are, but still, seeing this sticker sheet in person was pretty crazy. And then from there, box 2 is going to have bags numbered 26 to 54, and box 3 is going to have bags numbered 55 through 81. Yes, making 81 separate numbered bags and 6 separate instruction manuals. And seeing all these bags laid laid out on a table at one time was kind of crazy. It really does show you what you're actually getting into when you buy this set. And then also you might have noticed that the artwork printed onto the instruction manuals is actually the disc of the Death Star plans. I thought that was a nice touch. And then from there, inside the instruction manuals, there is so much to see and read, from a little timeline showcasing the previous Death Stars to various different pictures of the set and pictures from the movie. Again, there is just so much to see and read here. It's not like other UCS sets where there's only 2 or 3 pages of information in the first instruction manual. There are multiple pages of information in every instruction manual, not just the first one. So unfortunately, I can't just thumb through these pages and show you guys like I usually do. I kind of just have to show them all at once like this because there's so much to see. And then from there, after about 3 days straight of building, this thing finally got completed. And it's honestly just kind of laughable at how big this thing is. Obviously, it was on display at the LEGO store when I went and bought it, but actually seeing it in my studio here is a lot different. This thing is ginormous. And this might be a hot take, but even when it's empty like this with no minifigures on the inside, it's still very intriguing because there's so much to look at. However, before we take a look at all of this, speaking of the minifigures, we of course got to take a look at all of them first, and there are a lot, a total of 40 to be exact. First up here we had the 2 Imperial Navy troopers, and as of now the one on the right is exclusive to this set, and the one on the left is the same one we saw in the Star Destroyer from last year. And these figures look decent on the front and the back, and then as you can see here, they also have a double-sided face. However, the fact that they don't have printed legs is definitely an annoyance to me, because back in 2014 when LEGO made this figure, it had printed legs then, but today in 2025 in a $1,000 set, it doesn't. And I know it's something small, but in a set of this price, I would like to be able to expect every detail possible. Next up here we have Han Solo. This is another exclusive figure to this set, however that is definitely subject to change in the future, and he looks really good. There's great printing on the torso and the legs and on the back, and he's also got a double-sided face. Here we have the new Farm Boy Luke minifigure. This is another figure that is currently exclusive to this set, but is again subject to change because it'll probably release again in the future. And excluding the Blue Milk Luke minifigure from 2022, this is actually the first Farm Boy Luke they've made since 2020, and he looks great. It's nice to see an updated version. And then here we have both Han and Luke in their Stormtrooper disguise outfits. They are literally just the head and hair piece of the previous 2 figures I just showed, but on a Stormtrooper body, if you couldn't tell. And since they are new figures, these 2 both are also currently exclusive to this set. And then here we have Ben Kenobi, yet another figure that is currently exclusive to this set. However, like the others, that is most likely going to change, but it looks great. He's got printing all over on the front and the back. He's also of course got his lightsaber and a second face print, and then he also includes a hairpiece that you can swap out with his hood if you want to. Next up here we have Chewbacca, and unlike the other figures, this one is not exclusive. It's the same one we've been seeing for over a decade at this point. I'm pretty sure LEGO introduced it in 2014, and it looks great. This is definitely one of those timeless figures that LEGO hasn't needed to change because they perfected it so long ago. Next up here we have Princess Leia, and this is another exclusive figure to this set. However, unfortunately, it's definitely one of the more frustrating and disappointing ones, and that's because, well, as you can see, 1, she has legs instead of a skirt piece, and 2, they don't even have printing on them, which for a $1,000 set is just so ridiculous, especially considering the fact that in 2019 they came out with a Princess Leia that had a skirt piece with printing on it and was in much cheaper sets, that being the $200 Tantive 4 in 2019 and the $50 X-Wing in 2021, but then in this $1,000 Death Star, they feel the need to make a new version that is just significantly worse than the previous one. Why can the better version come in cheaper sets, but not in the most expensive set ever made? It's just ridiculous. Anyways though, next up here we have the Episode 6 Final Duel version of Luke Skywalker, and everything about this figure is exactly the same as the one that came out in 2023 in the diorama. However, he actually has a slightly new face print now, so technically this makes it an exclusive figure to this Death Star, even though it's not very noticeable at all, but I mean, it's still exclusive, I guess. Next up here we have C-3PO, and this is another controversial figure, actually one of, if not arguably the most controversial figure in this set. And when you look at the figure, there's really nothing inherently wrong with it. It looks good, it's got leg printing, it's got arm printing, it's got decent printing on the torso and the back. However, the reason it's controversial is because this is not the best C-3PO minifigure that LEGO has out right now. They released one last year in the buildable C-3PO set for $140 that is significantly better than this one, and I actually have it right here with me. As you can see, it has side leg printing and a single dual molded leg, just giving it that extra amount of detail. Again, the one on the left here is not bad. This one on the right is just a lot better, and it should have been the one included, but for very stupid reasons, it's not. In the Death Star designer interviews, they talk about the C-3PO minifigure, which I did cover very in-depthly in a video a few weeks ago, but I'll go over it again here. In the Brickset 1, he is asked about this C-3PO, and he basically says that this dual molded leg C-3PO can't become the norm for C-3PO in the future because he's too expensive to include in small sets. Actually, he uses the word cheaper sets here, which that in itself is kind of ironic because he's literally in a cheaper set. That buildable C-3PO retails for $140. But to me at least, that's not even the main problem with this question and his answer. My main problem is basically with how the question is framed, because the wording actually gave him kind of a scapegoat, because the interview brought up the idea of this C-3PO being the standard for all sets in the future and not just strictly why it's not in this Death Star, because then the designer was able to respond with, oh, well, he'd be too expensive to include in small sets, and that's all he said. But the thing is, this Death Star isn't a small set, it's the most expensive set ever made, and instead of strictly focusing on why this C-3PO is not in this $1,000 set, the interviewer gave him a chance to use a scapegoat and bring up cheaper sets and ignore this Death Star, which I think is ridiculous, because I'm pretty sure if this lesser quality C-3PO here came in a cheaper set, like maybe a $25 Luke's Landspeeder, most people would probably rather have the dual molded legged version, but at the end of the day, they wouldn't care all too much. While yes, I'm pretty sure we all want this dual molded leg C-3PO to be the standard, and it can be the standard because it actually comes in a $6 keychain, that's not necessarily the main issue here. The main issue is that this isn't an average set, it's the $1,000 Death Star, and I think the interviewer should have strictly asked him why it's not in this set and not why it's not the standard, because that gave him a scapegoat again. So yeah, there's my take on this C-3PO figure. But anyways, next up here we have R2-D2, and unlike C-3PO, this figure is pretty much perfect. It's the same one they've been using since 2022, so nothing new to see here. But then next up here we have R3-T6 with the clear dome piece, and he actually has the exact same print as R2-D2, just in a different color obviously, but he's the first ever LEGO astromech to have that clear dome piece because he's an R3 unit, and I think it looks really cool. And then next up here we have both the Imperial crew. The female one is exclusive to this set as of currently, and the male one is the same one that came in the Star Destroyer from last year, and they both look solid. There's not a ton to see here. The female one though does have that dual molded hair hat combo piece, which as usual looks pretty good. Next up here we had the Imperial shuttle pilot on the left and the Imperial Navy officer on the right, and they are both currently exclusive to this set, and they both look really good. And as you can tell, the female also has that hair hat combo piece. However, one thing I don't get is that they're basically the same figure. They're different characters, but they look very, very identical, and the male figure has printed legs, but the female figure doesn't. That's just a strange point of inconsistency to me. While they are different characters, they look pretty much identical, so why can't the female figure have the same leg piece as the male one? Again, just another area of this set where LEGO is cheaping out and giving these designers a strict budget, all in the name of profit margins. But continuing on, here we have the two Imperial Gunner minifigures, and they look really good. I actually usually like these figures because I think their helmets have a cool design, and of course they have nice printing all over on the front and the back, and both of them actually have new face prints, which technically makes them exclusive, even though these new face prints maybe could have gone somewhere else in this set, like giving Leia some leg printing, or including the dual molded leg C-3PO, but no, I guess we're getting new face prints on these guys that are covered up by helmets. Next up here we have the Royal Guards, even more figures that are exclusive to this set, and they're not anything crazy, but they do look pretty good. I usually enjoy when LEGO makes these Imperial Guards. Here we have Darth Vader. This is the same arm printed Darth Vader LEGO has been using since 2023, so there's really not much new to see here. However, it is still a very good looking figure, and kind of like the Chewbacca that I mentioned earlier, it's probably a figure that they're not going to change for a while just because it's pretty much perfected here. And then here we have the Emperor, another figure that they've been using for a few years now. They released this one back in 2023, and again, like Darth Vader, they're probably going to continue to use this one for quite a while, which I'm fine with. And as you can see here, he does have a second face print along with his Force Lightning. And then next up here, we have one of the main highlight figures in this set, that being Director Krennic, the first one they've made since 2016. And he looks great. He's a very simple figure, but at the same time, he's an awesome character to own. And like a lot of other figures in this set, he too is also going to have a second face print. And then here he is compared to the original one from 2016 on the right. And as you can see, these figures are nearly identical. And I didn't know that when I got this set. For some reason, I was thinking this new one was completely different. But no, the only difference is just some slight changes in his torso print, which for some reason just surprised me when I compared them side by side like this. Now, yes, as of now, this Director Krennic minifigure is exclusive to this Death Star. However, I am almost certain that it's going to change here very soon. I'm really expecting him to show up next year in 2026 in either a Microfighter or Playscale Krennic's Imperial Shuttle. And then next up here, we have another highlight figure of this set, that being the Imperial version of Yularen, the first one we've gotten since 2015 in the Rebels poly bag. And he looks great. I think his all-white outfit makes him stand out. He's a very unique figure, and as you can see here, he's also got a double-sided face. However, one thing I actually didn't know about him is that he's not supposed to have white legs. If you look at him in Star Wars, he pretty much has the exact same outfit as every other Imperial officer, just the white top and then the black pants. So that means this figure is actually technically inaccurate, which I didn't know, and that means the 2015 version is also inaccurate. So as good as the all-white does look, he technically does need to have black legs. Next up here, we have 5D6 RA7 Protocol Droid, and this is actually a great looking figure, and much to my surprise, this is actually apparently the first time LEGO has ever made a protocol droid like this. For some reason I thought that LEGO had made this in the past just because it's such a common droid we see in Star Wars, but no, apparently this is the first time they've made it, and I think it looks great. I'd actually say it's one of the most underrated figures in this set. And then next up here we have one of my personal favorite characters in this set, that being the Imperial Dignitary, or specifically Sim Alu, I think that's how you say his name, because there's a few different versions of these Dignitary dudes in universe, and the one they ended up going with is the character Sim Alu, and he looks great. I think this is slowly becoming a fan favorite figure in this set just because of how unique it is. Obviously the purple colorway looks great and stands out among other figures, and his hat piece mold also looks great too. There's detail all around it, even on the top as you can see here. However, I just completely hate that he does not have any printing on his skirt piece. As cool as this figure is, the bottom looking blank like this is just so off to me, because I mean it literally looks like his legs haven't finished rendering yet because there's nothing there. It just goes from detail on the top to nothing on the bottom, and I don't like that. It should have printing on the legs. Again, this is a $1,000 set. I want to be able to expect every detail possible. But anyways, continuing on, next up here we have probably the most sought after figure in this set, that of course being the Hot Tub Stormtrooper, and obviously this figure is currently exclusive to this Death Star. However, unlike other figures in this set, I think this one is gonna stay exclusive, and that's just because there aren't really any other sets that would make sense to include this figure unless LEGO released it as like a standalone poly bag or something. So yeah, I think this one is gonna stay exclusive. Unfortunately, on eBay it's already selling for well over $100, but regardless, it looks great. It's the Hot Tub Stormtrooper, one of the biggest memes in LEGO Star Wars, and on the box it claims that this is based off of the Skywalker Saga version, which it's not exactly the same. However, that's definitely the closest version to it. It's definitely not based off the older versions, but still, it looks good. It's great to have this figure, and the faceprint underneath the helmet is really awesome. Oh, and not to mention, he has dual molded legs if you can't tell, and it's kind of ironic that he's the only figure in this set to have them. Next up here we have Galen Erso, another fan favorite figure in this set because it's a character LEGO has never made before, and he looks great. He's pretty much 100% accurate, minus maybe some black toe printing on his feet. He's got good and accurate torso printing on the front and the back, and he's actually got arm printing on his right arm. Ironically, the only figure in this entire set to have arm printing, and as you can see here, he's also got a double-sided face, and he comes with a little printed tile that's supposed to be the Death Star plans. And as of right now, yes, this figure is exclusive to this Death Star. However, like Krennic, I'm really expecting him to show up somewhere in 2026. I think it would make a lot of sense for both of these figures to show up in a new Krennic's Imperial shuttle. But then next up here, we have the Imperial officers. From left to right, that being General Tag, Admiral Modi, and Grand Moff Tarkin. And as all of you guys know, aside from C-3PO, these are the most controversial figures in this set. And to get straight to the point, yeah, it's because they don't have dual molded legs. Aside from that though, I mean, as figures, they look alright. They've got fine printing on the front and the back, and then of course they all have a second face print, but unfortunately, they just have blank legs. I mean, it looks like these figures came out in 2009. The Clone Wars Yularen minifigure from the 2023 Venator has dual molded legs, and as all of you guys know, that figure looks incredible, and you can actually see it back there displayed on my shelf, so that means the color of the dual molded legs that would be needed for these Imperial officers are in production right now, but they did not include them. And going back to that designer interview that I mentioned earlier with C-3PO, the designer communicates that these guys don't have dual molded legs because they were given a lot of restrictions due to their given budget for these minifigures, and dual molded legs for these guys basically just wasn't at the top of their priorities because they could only do so much with these figures, which I'll get to their priorities and decision making here in a second. But overall, the root cause of this is just that whoever in the higher ups at LEGO is giving these guys this super strict budget is being ridiculous. Clearly it speaks that the profit margins on this Death Star are so extremely strict that they just had a limited amount of things they could do. That's why half these figures have freaking blank legs like they were released in 2010, and why there's also a sticker sheet that has 50 stickers on it and less printed pieces. It really just shows that the main problem is the higher ups at LEGO in the financial department or whatever that is making the budget and profit margin for this set and giving these guys very strict limitations. It's just ridiculous because this is a $1,000 set. Every single detail possible should be on these figures, but no, they are being greedier than ever with a set that is more expensive than ever. However, back to the topic of the designer's decisions within their limitations, here we have the Stormtroopers, and there's a very specific reason I saved these guys for last. But first off, they're just your normal ugly Family Guy Stormtrooper, same printing on the front and the back that we've been seeing for a long time now, and then of course that atrocious helmet mold that looks way too oversized and big and droops down over the torso very awkwardly, but that's beside the point. The main thing to point out is that 5 out of 6 of these Stormtroopers actually have new face prints, which is just insane because the designers very clearly communicate that they, had a very limited amount of things they could do with these figures, yet for some reason they gave 5 of these Stormtroopers a new face print, and those 2 Imperial Gunners that I mentioned earlier also have new face prints. So that's 7 new face prints that are going to be covered up by helmets because as nobody is displaying these stormtroopers or those gunners without their helmets on. That could have gone to all the other figures in this set that needed actual detail that you can see, like printed legs on Leia, the dual molded legs on the officers, the dual molded leg C-3PO, the printed skirt piece on the Imperial dignitary. The list goes on and on and on. So while the root problem is the higher ups at LEGO giving the designers a very strict budget with this Death Star, on top of that, within their given limitations, the designers clearly did not make good decisions. So instead of a good looking Princess Leia, a good looking C-3PO, or good looking Imperial officers, we get new face prints on stormtroopers and Imperial gunners. Let's freaking go. So yeah, that is the entire minifigure lineup for this Death Star. There is a lot to look at, and on paper this is a very good lineup. However, the execution is just awful because, again, the higher ups at LEGO gave these designers a stupidly strict budget, and then within that budget the designers made some pretty rough decisions, which has just left this minifigure lineup for a $1,000 set feeling very incomplete. When I look at the execution of this lineup, I do not feel like I got my money's worth at all. Before we actually get onto the build, I want to take a quick look at the stand and display plaque, and it's just like every other UCS stand and display plaque, a very simple design, and then of course a massive printed piece for the display plaque that you can pause and read if you want to. And then also included on it is this little control panel right here, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I don't know what this is supposed to be. I'm sure I should know, but I don't, and I'm sure you guys will let me know down in the comments. The two figures that work best on this stand are really Krennic and Galen, and that's because they're pretty much the only two figures that don't have a designated spot within the Death Star. But I mean, I guess you could put any figure here, like maybe Darth Vader and Darth Sidious. However, again, I think Galen and Krennic work best because they don't have a specific spot within the Death Star. But now actually moving on to the Death Star itself, here it is loaded up with all the minifigures, and I'm not gonna lie, seeing this thing come to life with all the minifigures and the scenes being recreated is really fun. And despite its many flaws, it's still definitely a very intriguing display piece. It actually is a lot more fun than I was expecting it to be. And my favorite room within this set has got to be either the control room with the laser. I think the interior section of the super laser looks gorgeous, and I love how it leads basically straight into the control room. I just think that's a nice touch. Or the hangar bay, simply just because it's the biggest room in the model, so there's lots of room for plenty of minifigures. And I also love how the Imperial shuttle looks in there, and you've probably already seen this online, but if you own the midi-scale Falcon that released last year, you can also display it in the inside of the hangar bay like this, and it looks pretty nice. Now, regarding the price per gram of this set, it's actually not as bad as some of you guys might think. It has a total weight, figures and all, of about 8,300 grams, and with a $1,000 retail price, that comes out to a price per gram of just about 12 cents, which is actually about average when compared to the biggest LEGO Star Wars sets. The UCS Falcon has a price per gram of 11.8 cents, and the UCS AT-AT has a price per gram of 13.4 cents. So in terms of just strictly the size and the volume of this set, $1,000 is, I mean, you guys aren't going to like to hear me say this, but it's a solid deal. However, that can only go so far because clearly it's the size that a $1,000 set would be, because this thing is freaking massive. But unlike the AT-AT and the Falcon, it's not the quality of a $1,000 set. And that's where it definitely differentiates from those two sets, and not in a good way. But now actually diving into the set, we'll start off with the outside first. The left side is definitely the more intriguing side, obviously because it has the super laser, and I think the super laser looks great. They did a really good job on it. I've seen a lot of people complain that these clips right here holding the laser should be green and not gray, but honestly, it doesn't really bother me because from afar it's not even noticeable, so overall I think it looks good. However, one thing I don't like is how loosely the super laser is held on. As you can see here, it can easily fall off to the side, creating this large gap, and then you kind of have to fiddle with it to get it back in the right place, and it's just kind of tedious. And that's because if you look on the inside, the bottom of it actually is not held into place. It's kind of just wedged between these two bricks, so it has just barely enough room to kind of wobble back and forth, and that's what causes the issue of it swaying and kind of falling out of place. So yeah, I really wish this was held on better. But then from there, like I showed earlier, the back of the super laser looks great, and it goes straight into the control room, which I think is awesome. And the actual control center itself looks good. It's all stickers, which is not preferable, but at the very least, I like how it looks. And the whole thing can actually slide out, which gives you access to the level below it, but it also allows you to easily place your figures on this part, and then you can slide it back in. There's also some other stuff going on in this room, like on the left side here under the laser, there are what I assume are supposed to be power generators. And then in the very back here, there's actually going to be some printed tiles of the pill lights. And also back here, there's going to be this window where on the back side, there is this knob you can spin, which basically flips this piece over in the window, showing Alderaan on one side and then Alderaan blown up on the other side. And you can kind of choose how you want to display it. Up here at the top, there's also going to be some other minor details with the cylinder pieces on the wall. And then on the right here, above the control room, there's going to be another control room with a officer looking down on the Death Star gunners. And for the most part, it looks good in there. I mean, it's kind of hard to see just because it's so covered up, but there is a lot of detail going on, and having the officer look down upon the Death Star laser is pretty cool. Moving on down from the laser, you're going to see some nice shaping with the panels, and then you're actually going to see the trench represented right here, perfectly in line with the center of the Death Star, kind of representing the equator, and it's of course going to be on the other side as well. And then moving on down from that, the bottom half is just going to be like the top, just some nice shaping with the curved panels, as well as a little bit of greebling. Now, unlike the left side, the right side isn't that great looking, mainly just because for the most part, it's blank. So if you ever end up actually buying this set and you're figuring out how to display it, make sure that the left side is the prominent side that is showing with the laser, because as you can see here, the right side just doesn't look that good. The only thing to see here is just the cannon that sticks out the top of it, which you can access by first taking off this top portion that's not held on by any studs, it just sits on there, and then the panels around the actual cannon fold up, giving you access to the inside. And I'm not gonna lie, it looks really good. I love the design of it, and as you can see here, it can just ever so slightly move up and down. It can't move side to side, but I mean at the same time, I guess it doesn't really need to, but at the very least, I love how it looks. And then moving on from there, the top of the outside is just again more curved panels. They did a really good job on the curvature of this thing. However, some of the tile pieces in the copy I got actually came kind of dirty and smudged like this, which is honestly something I've never seen in a brand new Lego set before, but I mean, oh well, I guess. Now you also might have noticed this knob of gears up here that you can twist, and that's actually for the elevator that runs from the very top to the very bottom of the set. It's kind of hard to get on camera, but I'm not gonna lie, it's one of the best play features in this set. And you can also just barely ever so slightly see it on the backside too when you move it up and down. Now speaking of the backside, as all of you guys know, this is definitely one of the most made fun of parts of this set, because as you can see, they literally did not do anything back here. The only things to see back here are just a few Easter eggs on the bottom right, with a mini kit here on the left side, as well as some of the currency from the Lego Star Wars video games here on the right side, and the little interrogation droid hidden here, which is a solid looking build. Some of you guys might count this as a minifigure. It's very simple and it gets the job done. It works just fine. And then also on the very back side here at the bottom, if you look closely, you can see a little Lego octane tank on the inside right there, which is obviously an Easter egg in reference to Lego City. But yeah, other than those things, the backside is really nothing to look at. It basically shows that it's meant to be placed up against a wall, and this backside is never supposed to be seen. The bottom on the front side, on the other hand, actually does look really good. It's a small footprint, but at the same time, it's got a pretty nice design. I mean, this thing isn't going to tip over too easily. And as you can see here, there's also some greebling and nice detail under here that for the most part gets covered up. So it's nice that they went that little extra mile, at least for this part. And then right above the bottom section, you're obviously going to have the hangar bay area, which like I mentioned earlier, is my favorite part of this set just because of how roomy it is and how many figures you can fit in here. But first we'll go ahead and take a look at the Imperial shuttle here. And I'm not going to lie, it's a really solid design and pretty impressive at this scale. I love the shaping they were able to pull off on the cockpit here, and the cockpit can actually fit a minifigure on the inside. The front of it can kind of just snap off right here, and then you can grab your pilot and lay him down in here and then put that piece back on. And then right behind the cockpit, you're going to see the two cannons on each wing, as well as a sticker right there in the middle. And then here you can get a good look at the detailing on the side. I think it looks great. I also love the design of the landing gear because it's very simple. They're just these four little legs on these hinges that you can raise up and down very easily. The backside is also very simple, just transparent blue tiles representing the engine thrusters. And then it actually has a little bit of an interior. This top wing can actually pop off, revealing a very small area on the inside where if you want to, you can grab another figure and lay it down and stuff it in here and then put the wing back on. And then when it's in its flight position, it also looks really good. I'm not gonna lie, if Lego ever makes a mini scale Imperial shuttle, I imagine it'll look pretty close to this, just a little bit better maybe. However, the one thing I don't like about this build is how short the wings are, specifically the middle top wing. And you'd think that the reason they did this is so obviously it would have enough room to fit on the inside of the hangar bay, but as you can see here, there's actually plenty of clearance from the wings in the top of the ceiling here, which is more than enough room for the wings of the shuttle to actually be the right length. But no, they still made them short, which I'm not the hugest fan of. Taking a look at the rest of the hangar bay here, as you can see in the back, there is a giant door that's supposed to lead out into space with a brick-built background full of stars. However, if you didn't notice already, up here in the top left corner, there is a piece missing, and that's because earlier when I tried to move this set, I picked it up just ever so slightly in the wrong area, and the whole entire bottom half actually started to come loose and almost fell off, and a few pieces fell out here and there, and by the time I got done putting it back together, I noticed that I had missed this piece right here. And yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I was not gonna try to put this piece back into place because I pretty much would have to somehow lift up or take off the whole entire top of the build, and I'm just not gonna do that. So if you ever buy this set, be careful how you pick it up because it can literally pull itself apart under its own weight. And also for the people that actually believe you can hang this thing on a wall, yeah, that's not gonna work. It will fall apart. Anyways though, the rest of the hangar bay looks good. On the floor here, you're gonna have some stickers, and then also one of those bottomless pits that are always in Star Wars hangar bays that are actually supposed to be elevators that lift the ships up and down. And on the inside side there, there's going to be even more stickers. On the right side here, you're going to see some cool white stripes in the wall that I think looks great. And then right above that, you're going to have the hangar bay control room, which looks really good. However, all the control panels you see in here are yet again more stickers. And as good as this entire room looks, it was just not fun to put together. The amount of stickers in this set really at times do hinder the build process. But then on the other wall, you're actually going to have more details, just some lights and such, and these pieces actually are printed, which is nice. And then next to that, you're going to have the bottom elevator door, and this is what every elevator door in the set looks like. And I'm not going to lie, that big sticker on the top doesn't look the greatest. Again, just another piece I wish was printed. But on the bright side though, all these doors do slide open, which is really fun. And then of course you can lower down the elevator shaft and put a minifigure in there if you want to. And then right next to that, you're going to have R2-D2 at the wall here trying to hack into the trash compactor system, which again is another sticker. And then right on the other side of that wall, you're going to have the trash compactor itself, which you can actually get easier access to by sliding out this top section right here. And the trash compactor itself looks good. It's very similar to the 2022 diorama. However, it's not exactly the same because it's significantly smaller, but per usual, there is a ton of detail in there. And then on the back, there is this knob right here that you can of course use to open and close the walls. And then right in front of the trash compactor, you're going to notice this big empty space right here. And this is actually supposed to be, if you want to, where you can set up Darth Vader and Ben Kenobi's duel. However, I'm not going to lie, I think it looks kind of awkward having them fighting right in front of the trash compactor like this. So I just prefer to leave this area empty. But then moving on, right above the trash compactor, you're going to have this little hallway area right here where you can have Han Solo running from some stormtroopers. And the hallway itself looks good. The floor's detailed, the walls are detailed. You got more printed pill light pieces right there. And then on the left side of the back, you're going to have this sliding door that reveals the interrogation droid that I showed earlier. And then on the back right side, you're of course going to have another elevator door. Moving up from there, you're going to have the prison cell hallway area where Princess Leia was held. And this is definitely one of the most detailed areas of this set. The hallway is slightly raised up from the room over, and then the hallway itself has tons of detail. I love how they did the floor. And then at the back of the hallway, you're going to see a sticker that's supposed to create the illusion that the hallway keeps going. And then on the right side here, you might have noticed this hole in the wall, and that's actually supposed to be the trash chute that leads to the trash compactor. And it literally does. You can put a minifigure in there and it will fall all the way down to the bottom into the trash compactor. And then right next to that, you're of course going to have the door that leads into Leia's cell, which you can access on the side here by grabbing this little handle and pulling the wall off, and then pulling the whole entire cell out. And it's a very simple build, pretty much just a bed, and of course you can grab the Leia figure and lay her on here, and then very easily slide the whole entire thing back into the side of the Death Star and put the wall back on. Moving over from there, you're going to have another control center, and like I showed earlier, the section above it can slide out so you have better access to it. And like all the other control centers, it's all stickers, but it still looks really good. And I also really love the design of the lights hanging off the wall in the back. The next room over at first glance is empty for the most part. You're just going to see yet another elevator door that you can slide open if you want to. But then on the right side here, you're going to see a little window which leads into what is supposed to be a miniature representation of the reactor core. And you can actually pop the wall off to get a better look at it. And I think it's really cool that they included this basically right in the center of the build right here. And then even cooler on the back side here, there's actually the exhaust port that Luke shoots into. And then moving on next over, we have one of the most fun rooms in this entire build, where at the bottom you have Ben Kenobi sneaking around and shutting down the tractor beam, and then at the top you have Luke and Leia swinging across the gap. And then on its own, this room does look really good. You're gonna have some minor detailing on the wall with more of those printed pill lights. And then at the bottom here, you're gonna have the bridge, which I think looks great. I love how they pulled off this angle right here. It's super satisfying. And then you're gonna have the tractor beam, which is just loaded up with stickers per usual, and it just rests on this arm right here, and you can actually kind of move it back and forth like this. And then of course you can set up the scene where Ben Kenobi is shutting it down and have a stormtrooper there walking on the bridge. Right above that, you're gonna have the rope that Luke and Leia swing on, and it's on a Technic piece, so on its own it can actually hold its position. However, when you do put Luke and Leia on there, the weight of them just makes it fall down to the middle, which is fine. However, what's cool though is that right above it, there's actually this knob right here that you can turn, and it swings them back and forth, as you can see. And then if you don't want to have them swinging, on the left side here, there's this gear piece sticking out, and if you turn that, it actually extends the bridge all the way out across to the other side. So yeah, again, this is one of the most fun areas of this set, just because there's two very iconic scenes going on. Now in the next room over where the bridge came from, there's really nothing going on, just room for a figure if you want, and then of course another elevator door. However, at the back here, there is a little Easter egg, that being a sticker representing a handful of posters with some wanted signs of Han and Leia, among some other things. Now on the opposite side of the tractor beam room, at the bottom here, there's going to be a little sliding door, and that is going to lead into Darth Vader's meditation chamber, or just his meditation room. And this whole entire thing can actually slide out so you have easy access to it, and then the top part can come off so you can put Darth Vader on the inside if you want to, and on the inside you're just going to see more stickers, who would have guessed, but overall it looks pretty cool. I like that it was included. And then inside the meditation chamber, you're going to find a few more Easter eggs, that being a sticker of Palpatine in the back, along with even more posters on the left side showing a bunch of different things, like a picture of Padme, a picture of the pod race, a Naboo Starfighter, and at the bottom left there, a reference to the LEGO Star Wars Beach special. And then right above the meditation chamber, you're going to have one of the coolest rooms in this entire set, that being the Imperial meeting room. And it looks really good. I like the design of the table and the design of the wall in the back, and there are 7 total chairs in there. And you're also going to have a sliding door that leads into this room. But there's one thing LEGO really fumbled with, and that's that unlike other areas of this set, you can't pull this section out, which really sucks because it is pretty crammed and those back chairs back there are hard to access and put figures in, and really the only way to easily access it would be able to take off the entire top portion right here. So yeah, I don't know why LEGO didn't make this section removable because it really needed it. But speaking of the top portion, this is where you're of course going to find the Emperor's throne room, the second largest room in this entire build. And as expected, it looks awesome. You can have Luke and Darth Vader up here fighting in front of the Emperor. You can also fit the Imperial dignitary up here, and it is very similar to the 2023 diorama, which I actually have back there on my shelf. However, it's not exactly the same because the design of it is a little bit smaller. And then if you're wondering, his window just sticks right out the back, which means that the backside isn't completely flat, which is just more proof that you cannot hang this thing on a wall. Do not try that. And then like I showed earlier, this top section is removable just to give you even more access to this area. And then here you can see all the detail that's really going on in this room. It looks great. And then at the front here, you're going to have the bridge that sticks out, and I think it looks beautiful. I love how LEGO designed it. You're also going to have a path that runs all the way from the super laser control room to this bridge and kind of zigzags around the corner, which I think is awesome. And then up here in the corner, you're going to have this play feature where you can have Luke sit on this little platform, and you can push in this lever right here, and it kind of knocks the platform out from underneath him and makes him fall down. And then finally, moving on from the Emperor's throne room, last but certainly not least, you have this little room up here at the top where you're obviously going to have the very top elevator door as well as room for a figure. And as all of you guys know, right behind this wall, if you lift up this panel, it's where you're going to find the hot tub stormtrooper. And his whole entire bathtub can actually slide out, so if you want to, you can just display this thing on its own, which I think is cool. And then when you're done with it, you can just slide this thing back in and close the hatch back down. And then there we have it. That is everything to see in this $1,000 LEGO Death Star, the first $1,000 LEGO set ever made, and the set that we've been waiting on literally all year. And the question on everyone's minds is this set actually worth it for $1,000? And in my opinion, the short answer is, well, no. Don't get me wrong, there are tons of things I love about this set. Seeing the set come to life when you fill it up with figures is awesome, and most of the rooms and scenes you can recreate on the inside are really fun, and it definitely does give this set a lot of life and make it a very intriguing display piece. But at the end of the day, really the only thing that makes it even semi-worth $1,000 is just the sheer size of it, like I showed earlier with its price per gram, because it has relatively a close price per gram to both the Falcon and the AT-AT. But unlike those two sets, it's just lacking the quality in a number of different areas, whether that be with the minifigure lineup, because again, half of these figures do not have the details they need to have for a set this expensive, and they look like they were released 15 years ago, or with just the sheer amount of stickers in this set that at times really does hinder the build process and get pretty frustrating. And then of course you have the TIE Fighter GWP, which I'm just not bringing up because I'm going to make a separate video on that includes a TIE Fighter and figures that really should already be included in this set. It's things like that that make this set feel incomplete, and you really just can't have that for the first $1,000 set ever made, because while yes, there are fun things about this set and it's massive, which is awesome, it's just lacking too much. And for the price tag, it really should be, yes, perfect. Every single one of these minifigures should have all of the details that I pointed out earlier, and honestly, I don't even think this set should have any stickers. $1,000 is a premium price tag, and I think a premium product would be a product with all printed pieces. But no, like I mentioned earlier, the higher ups at LEGO decided to cheap out on their budget for literally the most expensive set of all time, all for their beautiful profit margins. And if you're someone that's contemplating getting this set over some other UCS sets, I don't think you should, even though at the same time, if you are someone that does make enough money to have $1,000 to drop on a LEGO set, you can kind of make your own decisions. But in my opinion, I would recommend the Venator, the Sail Barge, the AT-AT, the Falcon, the Razor Crest, even the aftermarket Star Destroyer prices all over this set. And if you're someone that somehow already has all of those sets, then I guess it'd be valid to get this one. But I personally would not choose this over any other large-scale UCS set, because again, it has a lot of cool things going for it, but overall, it just feels incomplete. So because of that, I'm feeling a 6 out of 10 for this one. Let me know what you guys think about this set down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more videos, you can see them on the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at what I can confidently say is the worst LEGO Star Wars gift with purchase of all time, that being 40771 TIE Fighter with Imperial Hangar Rack. If you guys didn't know already, this set is the GWP, meaning gift with purchase, for the UCS Death Star that just released on October 1st, meaning that if you bought the UCS Death Star within the first week of its release at a LEGO store or on LEGO.com, you would have got this TIE Fighter right here included with your purchase for free. However, unfortunately, it was only quote-unquote free for the first week of the Death Star's release, and right now it's already currently selling for well over $100 on both eBay and Bricklink, which is insane to me because there's literally nothing special about this set. No new pieces, no new minifigures, nothing is special. You can probably part out this entire set on Bricklink for less than $40, yet people are out here paying over $100 for it. Now, usually when LEGO releases these GWPs, they are for the most part completely separate from the UCS set. They're just their own unique standalone set that usually have no correlation with the UCS set that they come with. However, this one is different because, as you can see up here at the top right corner of the box, it says combine with 75419, which is the Death Star. And ironically, literally the background of the front box art is the interior of the Death Star, which I honestly did not even notice until I had this set in hand. But one of my main overall problems with the Death Star itself is that for $1,000, it feels very incomplete, and the exclusion of this TIE Fighter from the standard set and making it the GWP is really a main part of that problem. This TIE Fighter and the 3 minifigures that come in it should actually be included with the Death Star, and the GWP should have been something else. However, I'll talk about that more towards the end of the video. But opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're just going to find 3 numbered bags, along with an unnumbered bag that has a few of the larger pieces, and then of course your instruction manual. Now, as for the minifigures go with this set, you are just going to get 2 stormtroopers and a TIE pilot, and there is literally nothing new to see here. These are the same stormtroopers and the same TIE pilot that LEGO has been using for years now. I feel like at the very least they could have included the arm printed TIE pilot from the UCS TIE Interceptor, but no, it's just the standard version. Again, like the TIE Fighter, these 3 figures should have just been included with the Death Star, and that's also further justification that you definitely should not buy this set on the aftermarket. Now, moving on to the actual builds, as expected for a TIE Fighter that's been downscaled to this size, it's not the most appealing. I've actually seen quite a lot of people say that the 4+ TIE Fighter looks better than this. But first, we'll start off with the little Imperial card here, and I'm not gonna lie, I actually like how this looks. You've got some type of red and yellow fuel canisters on the back here, and you've also got some printed Imperial crates, which when you open up, there's a little detonator on the inside, and then you can grab either a stormtrooper or your TIE pilot and sit him on the cart like this, and again, I just like how it looks. I'm not gonna lie, this little cart right here might be the best part of this set. But now moving on to the actual TIE Fighter itself, like I mentioned earlier, it's pretty ugly, to put it lightly, but at the same time, they did have to downscale it to this size so it could fit inside the Death Star, so I mean, can you really blame them for it looking this ugly? I feel like at this scale, it's inevitably gonna look bad. Anyways though, on the front here, the windshield is transparent, however there's a brick behind it so you can't see into the actual cockpit. So to access it, this entire front section right here just simply pops off, where you can grab your TIE pilot and sit him down here on the inside and then put your front piece back on. From there, the top really isn't much to look at, just a dish piece supposed to be representing the top hatch, and then on the back there's just some circular plates adding some minor detail. Now, I do have to say though, there is one part of this build I actually kind of like, and that's the design of the wings. I like the technique they used with the rod pieces here. I just think it looks kind of cool, and if you're wondering how the wings are connected, they're held on by just one Technic pin, as you can see here. And now here is the quote-unquote Imperial Hangar Rack, which has a very basic design. You've got some wires here adding a little bit of detail, and then the arms themselves are actually loose, so you can kind of pose them if you want to do that. And the TIE Fighter simply just sits on these 2 arms right here. It's a very simple design, but I mean, it works fine, I guess. And then to mount it in the actual Death Star itself, as you can see up here at the top, there are going to be some pinholes, and then the arms simply just attaches right in. And then, like I showed earlier, you just grab your TIE Fighter, and it simply just rests on these 2 arms. And then there we have it. This is the completed look of the $1,000 LEGO Star Wars Death Star. Really what it should look like as the standard set. And honestly, I think the TIE Fighter is obviously ugly on its own, but when it's inside the Death Star like this, I like how it looks. It makes the Death Star feel more complete. Like I mentioned earlier, the Death Star as it comes on its own does just feel kind of empty, especially with these rooms right here in the middle and then up towards the top, because they're either empty or they're too big to only include one figure in them. But then with this GWP, the simple inclusion of these 2 extra stormtroopers actually goes a long way. And then of course, obviously, yes, the TIE Fighter here at the bottom as well. But no, unfortunately, all of this is locked behind this GWP that's not even available anymore unless you pay hundreds of dollars. Again, all of this should just be included with the actual Death Star itself, and then there's actually a few options for what the GWP should have actually been. In my opinion, I think the best idea would have been making the GWP a different TIE variant in the same scale, like a miniature Darth Vader's TIE Advanced, or even a miniature TIE Interceptor, that you could then switch out with this TIE Fighter in the Hangar Rack for a different display option. And if not that, another great option for a GWP would have been the entire hot tub stormtrooper scene, as in still including the single hot tub stormtrooper and his bathtub in the Death Star, but then having the GWP being the entire hot tub with the other stormtroopers. But no, instead they went with this crappy TIE fighter that should already be included in the set. And going from the greatness of the droid carrier GWP from 2024, the Kamino training GWP from this year 2025 in May, to this TIE fighter is just very, very disappointing. Which really sucks because it's the GWP for the most expensive LEGO set of all time, so theoretically we should expect one of the best GWPs of all time, but no, instead we got, ironically, the worst one of all time. So yeah, if I had to rate this set on its own, I mean, I don't even know, I'll give it a 3 out of 10. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you can see on the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at what might actually be a top 3 set of this year, that being 40806 Gingerbread AT-AT Walker. This set just released on October 1st with 697 pieces and a retail price of only $60 US. And excluding the advent calendars, as of currently, this is the 3rd Christmas Star Wars set LEGO has made. The last one was the Millennium Falcon Holiday Diorama back in 2023, and the Christmas X-Wing back in 2019, if you want to count that one. Now, one thing I have to say is that I love this box art. The cozy, Christmassy feeling mountains in the background just goes so well with the look of this set, and you also might have noticed that up here in the top right corner there's actually a snowspeeder in the background, and a lot of people have been wondering if this is alluding to a new snowspeeder coming out in the future. And I hate to burst your bubble, but this actually looks like the snowspeeder that came out in 2016 in the UCS Assault on Hoth, meaning that this is not a new snowspeeder, it's just up here for decoration. Regardless though, this set also includes a gingerbread Darth Vader, which I am very excited to take a look at, and then on the back of the box you're going to find another render of this set with another awesome snowy background, along with some pictures up at the top right showcasing the interior and the play features of this set. Opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're just going to find 5 separate numbered bags, along with 2 larger loose pieces, and then your instruction manual, and actually no sticker sheet, which is kind of a breath of fresh air from some other October sets. Here we have the one and only figure in this set, that of course being the gingerbread Darth Vader, and just like the set itself, this actually might be one of the best minifigures that released this year as well. I just love the light brownish gingerbread color, along with the white prints that are supposed to represent frosting, and then he's also got a printed cape, as you can see here, with some frosting going around the edge and even some sprinkles in the middle. I just think it's very clever. And then underneath the cape he's going to have even more printing, and as for his accessories, he's going to have a candy cane and a little sugar cookie, as you can see there, and of course his lightsaber if you want to use that instead. And then underneath his helmet he's actually going to have a blank head, which for a figure like this is fine. Now, if there is one thing I have to critique about this figure, it's obviously the eyes on the helmet. Like everyone else, I just wish they were a different color. I think dark brown or white would have worked really well, just something different so the entire helmet isn't all the same color like this. But other than that, one small thing, this figure is great and one of the best they've released this year. But now moving on to the actual set itself, unsurprisingly, it looks really good. As you can see here, it's absolutely littered with a bunch of different sprinkles and other Christmas type decorations. However, as good as this set does look, it is not completely perfect. There is one thing about it that I don't really like, however, I'll get to that here in a minute. First though, I want to talk about the price per gram of this set. It has a total weight of about 417 grams, which with a retail price of $60 US comes out to a price per gram of about 14.4 cents, which unsurprisingly is a great deal. It's well below the average of 17 cents for sets in this price range. But taking a look at the build now, starting off with the head area, it looks really good. Both of the cannons on the side and the bottom of the head are actually candy canes, which I think is an awesome detail. And then obviously the whole entire head itself is going to have sprinkles all over it, just like the rest of the set. And then to open it up, the sides kind of fold down here, and then the top hatch lifts up to reveal a very, very basic interior. It's really just a seat on the inside, and then as you'd expect, you can grab Darth Vader and sit him in here. However, when he's in here, the top hatch cannot close back down, which I'm not gonna lie, I actually don't have a problem with, because when you display it like this with Darth Vader kind of popping out the head, it looks really cool. So while it definitely would be preferable if the hatch could close back down, it doesn't really bother me. However, what does bother me though is the neck area, and like I mentioned earlier, this is the one part of this set that I don't like. One, because it's a little bit too long, the head sticks out too far, and also I honestly just don't like how the white cylinder piece looks as the neck, and 2, because it's locked into place, as you can see here. You can't turn the head or pose it or anything, which is kind of a prominent feature of AT-AT, so not having it in this set is a bit disappointing, because it'd be nice if you could pose the head. So again, I really wish they designed the neck a different way, but everything else about this set is pretty much perfect. Moving on to the back hole area, as you can see, there's tons of details with all the sprinkles and then some Christmas lights that hang across. I'm not gonna lie, this area was pretty tedious to build, however, the end result looks really good, so it definitely does pay off. off. And then the very back looks solid too, and you also might notice there's a little red piece in there, which might be a nod to Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, or it might be the AT-AT's butthole, I'm not really sure. But then from there, to access the interior, the sides of the hull just simply lift up, as you can see here. And then the interior is great. You got a little fireplace with some stockings hanging on it, and even a reef up there at the top. You're also going to have plenty of clips to hold Darth Vader's lightsaber, his candy cane, and the sugar cookie. And then at the very back here, there's even some presents on each side, which is really fun. And then obviously you can grab Darth Vader and fit him here on the inside. You might want to take his cape off first, which is something I didn't do here, as you can see, but regardless, it still looks good. And then from there, moving on down to the legs and the feet area, they also look great, unsurprisingly. Especially the feet, as you can see, they're loaded with detail. They got the sprinkles on them, as well as those bill pieces, as you can see there. And if you couldn't tell already, they're supposed to be gingerbread cookies, which I think is a great detail. And I think those wide icing pieces actually might be new to this set. Don't quote me on that though, because I don't know for sure. But regardless, the feet and the leg area still looks really, really good. And obviously, as you'd expect with any AT-AT, the legs are posable. You can put them in various different positions, which is nice. However, the bottom pieces right above the foot do tend to break off easily, as you can see here, which does actually get kind of annoying, but you can put them back on very easily. But again, you can pose the legs in various different ways. You can make it look like it's walking, you can stand it straight up. There's multiple different things you can do with it. However, again, I wish the head was also posable. But anyways, that is the Gingerbread AT-AT, a very fun and simple set, and also really the only redeemable October 1st set as well. And I think that's the consensus for the whole community, because if you look on LEGO.com, this set is already sold out and on back order for 60 days, so I think it's safe to say it's a pretty popular one. Again though, I'm not a fan of the neck design. I wish it was posable, so I'm going to take off 1 point and give this set a 9 out of 10. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you can see on the screen right now.